G'day and welcome to the Hunting Connection podcast. My name is Zach Williams and I am your host. Here we'll connect you with hunters, fishers and outdoor enthusiasts from around the globe. This podcast will share hunting and fishing stories, including past experiences, and tackle the tough hunting stereotypes our community faces. We hope to be a positive influence to those outside the community while also having a laugh along the way. Hope you enjoy the podcast. G'day and welcome to another episode of the Hunting Connection podcast. Today we have an Australian bow hunting legend. We've got Ben Salleras on. How you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. Yeah, it's been a fairly big year so far. Lots of different challenges and lots of different things going on, and not much hunting at all. But right here and right now, yeah, I'm good. Thanks, brother.
That's good to hear. Yeah, family life can get a bit that way.
Yeah, well, moving is one of those things that is just not very fun. And yeah, my wife and my young son and I have just been through that process of moving quite a long distance from a town that's called Chinchilla in southern Queensland, right up where I grew up. And yeah, moving is just one of those hectic things that I don't think anyone really enjoys moving. So that's probably been at the center of 2023 so far, and changing jobs and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of life changes going on, and just a lot of challenges this year so far, and just not a lot of fun or leisure, and certainly no hunting. So it's yeah, but look, there's plenty of the year left, and I'm sure it can improve from here. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So what do you actually do for work, Ben?
Mate, by trade, I'm an environmental engineer. So I studied environmental engineering at uni. Basically, it's probably a bit of a job title that's probably not super familiar to a lot of people, but at a university level, it's sort of a bit of a cross between civil engineering and a bit of chemical engineering and a bit of resource management and ecology and that sort of stuff. So basically what that's led me to in my life so far is I've mostly worked in construction and mostly in oil and gas, and looking after all the environmental aspects of some fairly major construction projects, and looking after operational assets as well. I'm not a greenie by any stretch of the imagination. I certainly wouldn't call myself a greenie, and I'm not an environmentalist. I get offended when people refer to us at work as environmentalists, because that's definitely not what we are. But I do care about planet Earth, and I do get a lot of satisfaction about being in an industry where you're basically ensuring that human activities are sort of managed in a particular way, that we are protecting our planet, and that basically, when it comes down to what's involved in that, it's sort of everything that, like, the definition of environment is basically everything that surrounds, and in a construction sort of context, that means like flora, fauna, soil, water, air. There's often a lot of social elements as well. It's basically managing and looking after everything that's happening around a human activity. Yeah. So, for example, building a pipeline, I've done a lot of pipelines, and that's sort of what I've specialized in a bit. So basically, managing your impacts, I guess, on everything that surrounds that project. So it's certainly not being a greenie or being an environmentalist. It's a little bit different to that. Right at this minute, I'm the last 3.5 construction supervisor looking after rehabilitation works, which has not technically been an environmental role, but rehabilitation has got a fairly big environmental flavour to it.
Yeah.
So in my current role, I'm a construction supervisor, supervising crews that are doing the actual earth moving and the actual work in terms of rehab. But I've actually just resigned, and I'm about to I'm about to leave this company that I've been with for 4 years in this stint, and it was 7 years before that. So I've done over 10 years with this company, and I'm about to start a new job as a consultant, just working from home. So it's going to be a fairly new phase in my life pretty soon, and
Very
it's
nice.
going to be working from home. Yeah. So yeah,
Nice.
that's what I do.
A bit more family time.
That's exactly right. It's going to be less hours per day, and more time. Way more family time, yeah, which I'm really looking forward to. As we know, that's priority number one. Like that's the bit you've really got to get right. And yeah, like my son's 22 months old now. He's about to hit 2 years old pretty soon. So yeah, it's going to be a fairly big change working from home, and but I'm really looking forward to the family elements of that. And yeah, like that's my normal day job, and in my spare time, I run a business called Silent Pursuits. I basically book hunts and organise hunts all around the world. That's sort of been, I don't really like the term that much, but in inverted commas, that's a side hustle. It provides a bit of pocket money, I guess, to help pay for my own hunts and my own sort of interests outside of work. And yeah, it's something I really enjoy, and yeah, like it's continuing to grow, and yeah, it's something that yeah I'm really passionate about, and I plan to keep doing that for a very long time.
It's been an awesome journey following you, like following that journey, and just seeing the incredible hunts that you're getting people out there on, like the bog area stuff and the musk ox stuff, and just all of that stuff, the ibex. It's been, there's been a bunch of lucky Australians that have been getting over there doing these hunts, and it's just incredible what they've been bringing home.
Yeah, no, I started doing it like literally just right before COVID became a thing. Like there was you might remember a time not that long ago where we'd never heard of this thing called COVID-19, and it hit, like it became a thing just after I started. So that obviously creates a fairly big barrier for sending people overseas to go hunting. But yeah, like it's just been growing organically. I'm not the sort of person that's going to go out and try and sort of take over the whole world in one day, and I'm not out there to make $1 million or anything. Like I'm just sort of trying to focus really on quality, and really trying to focus on making sure T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and just making sure the quality is really there in terms of experiences and outfitters and hunts and animals, and like just really trying to focus on making sure things are absolutely like aiming for the very highest of high quality with everything that I do in that respect. And yeah, it's been growing, and it was great last year when things opened up again to actually see a few of these people that had been booked for a few years to finally get to these places. And I really enjoy it. I love being a part of people's story, like from the time that they first make contact and say, hey, I want to do this, or I'm thinking about doing this or that or whatever, to the point where it's all done and they're sending me photos of whatever they've got up to, like whether they've taken an animal, and they definitely have. I just love that process, and I think I naturally like helping people. Like it's probably just something that comes with me naturally, is I like helping people, and I love seeing people live their dreams. And I've lived a lot of my dreams, and I've lived dreams that I never even, when I was at high school, I never even imagined the sort of shit I'd get up to. Like I really didn't imagine any of this sort of stuff would happen by this age. Exactly. And to be able to facilitate those sorts of dreams for other people, it's just incredibly fulfilling, and it just gives me a lot of pleasure, I guess. And a lot of these people are just mates, like they're people that I already know, and it's just it's exciting to be a part of. And I don't sort of work in. I don't like. I can book hunts anywhere in the world. Like it doesn't matter which country it is. Like whether it's a rifle hunt or a bow hunt or whatever. Like I can organize anything anywhere. But I kind of like to focus on the areas that are a little bit off the beaten track. Like I don't do a hell of a lot in North America and Africa. I don't kind of promote those areas a hell of a lot because there's just so much already going on there, and a lot of, especially Aussies and Kiwis and that, can probably sort things out for themselves pretty well. But some of these more, I guess more, just more remote or more unknown kind of areas, they're the areas I'm naturally interested in, and that's probably why I'm drawn to those areas, and I like sort of, being able to set things up for people and get them over there and let other people live their dreams and get up to some really crazy hunts. So I just, I love it. I really enjoy it.
You definitely put a few of those places on the map for the Australian hunting community, that's for sure. Places like Bulgaria and is it Greenland where the muskox hunts are?
Yeah, well that's one place where you can hunt muskox. They live in they're in North America, like in the very northern reaches of Canada, and they're in Iceland as well, and some of they're basically in the Arctic Circle. So if you look at if you get like a globe and look at it from the very northern axis, or look down on the northern axis of our planet, that section in the Arctic Circle is where muskox live, and they're in the northern reaches of Russia and stuff as well. But Greenland is a very affordable, manageable option, like for particularly for a bow hunter, whether you're a bow or rifle, it doesn't really matter. But bow hunting's legal there. Bow hunting's not legal in all countries, as you would well know. Like bow hunting, unfortunately, is not legal in all the places where rifle hunting is legal. So we're a little bit more limited as bow hunters in terms of where we can actually hunt. It's a shortened list compared to all the places where rifle hunting is legal, and that's particularly the case in Europe, probably more than anywhere else, but also in parts of Asia. But yeah, like Greenland's just it's just an absolute blowout. I've got a mate going there. He's flying over there in less than a week to go and hunt muskox, and
that's sweet.
Yeah, we were just talking today about gear and just finalising the last kind of details, and it's a crazy hunt. Like it's just,
I can imagine.
It's honestly, when I went there, I felt like I was in some sort of like suspended animation for that whole trip. Like I was in a video game. Honestly, it was just you just can't even explain what that is like unless you go and do it yourself and have a go. And a lot of these hunts are way more affordable than what people, I think, convince themselves of. Particularly that hunt, like that's the value for money there. Like what you're paying and what you're getting, I think it's just an incredibly good value for money deal. And there's lots of other hunts like that as well. There's lots of expensive hunts out there, and there's a lot of hunts that are just completely out of everyday people's reach. Like you and me, there's hunts you and I will never do because we just will never be able to afford it.
100%.
They're just out of reach unless we win a hunt in a raffle or something like that. For everyday normal kind of Joe Blows like you and me, they're just not affordable. But there are a lot of hunts that are affordable, and if you really want to do something, you can make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And just like the species on that Greenland muskox hunt as well that you can encounter, like the Arctic fox and the Arctic hares and that. Like when you started posting them, that's so cool. I geek out on that stuff.
Yeah, it's just such a different part of the world compared to here, particularly like compared to Australia. Like it's just, especially if you go on the spring hunt, which is sort of April, May kind of thing. Like it's still very frozen and very cold, and the whole landscape's covered in snow and ice, and like it's just something that's just so alien to someone like you or me who's from Australia.
Yeah.
Like it's just completely out of this world. And yeah, to be hunting species like a muskox, or you can't hunt caribou at that time of year. They don't have antlers yet, and there's no season for them at that time of the year. But yeah, like the Arctic fox and the snow hare and ptarmigans and stuff like that. Like it's a complete absolute blowout. It's a complete blowout. Yeah.
And the ptarmigans are like a big quail, pretty much, aren't they? They're like a grouse, a quail, something along those lines.
I guess they're probably closer to kind of a grouse, yeah, than a quail. But they're a game bird. I think they have a white. I'm pretty sure they have a white plumage during those winter months, and I'm pretty sure that changes as the season changes. So I think they go back to more like a camouflage sort of grey and brown mottled kind of plumage during the summer months.
Like a few of the species there do.
Yeah, that's right. The foxes do the same. I think even the hares, I'm pretty sure they do change their coat, like their fur colour as well throughout the season. Muskox virtually stay the same all year, and the caribou do as well, but they do molt. Like the muskox molt a lot of their wool during the summer months, so you'll see like those big sort of patches of wool starting to sort of fall out, and they must just regenerate that. It's an interesting thing about muskox. They're in a very unique family all by themselves. So there's no other mammals in the same family as the muskox. And when I was younger, I always assumed that they were a bovine, like in the same family as all of your, basically your cattle, you know, like all of your buffalo and your bison and your bantang and that kind of family. But they're actually in their own, completely own category, and they're closer to a sheep than a bovine. Yeah,
that's cool.
So they're closer to the ovis species than the bovine species, and they're virtually a relic from the last ice age. Like those guys were running around when there was woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and those sorts of species. They're just totally a living relic from that time. They've just through natural processes and just general evolution, they've survived. They've had what it took to continue to survive on this planet in those environments. And yeah, like obviously the woolly mammoths are gone, the saber-toothed tigers are gone, and there was lots of other critters around that time that are also gone. But these things are just still running around, and we can go and hunt them, and they taste.
That was
amazing.
My next question. How do they?
Man, seriously, like they. Someone actually asked me today. This is such a random thing, but on my work computer today, like that has like the Microsoft Windows program has like random screensaver backgrounds, like with these beautiful photos and that. I got back to my desk today, like from being out on site, and there was this amazing picture of like a photo of a muskox on my screen when I got back to my computer, and the lady next to me, she I just said, oh wow, there's a muskox on my screen. I started talking, and I told her, you know, I've chased them before, and I said, yeah, they're beautiful. And I told her that I'd probably describe it as, not very surprisingly, somewhere between lamb and beef.
Yeah, wow.
Somewhere in the middle there. Yeah, like definitely a bit of a sheepy flavor and a bit of a sheepy element to it, but definitely a bit beefier. Yeah, so somewhere in between. And I find it very hard to describe what different animals taste like, because we can't, unless you've tasted something, you've got no reference points. So like you can't. Most of us have only, like 95% of our population in this country have only tasted beef, lamb, pork, chicken.
It's like when I'm describing javelina to people, because when I went to Mexico, eating them, like they're just such a unique flavor, and they like cook like pork but taste nothing like pork. Like it was. Yeah,
it's unless you've got some sort of reference point. Like taste is a very difficult. It's a difficult thing to describe. It's like describing smell. It's the same. Like how do you describe something that someone hasn't smelled before? Like you can only use reference points that they already know. So there's not much to work with. By the way, what did you think of your hoggy? How did that go for you?
It was awesome hunt, super hard. way harder than I ever expected it to be. Just logistics, getting over there, getting your gear over there, gear failing while I was over there, like the ladder stand. Just working through that sand, like that sand wears you out walking through the tracks that are all crazy. But yeah, like everyone rates the hog deer as the favorite deer in Australia of eating, but I found it quite bland. Like it's really nice, and it's very like a mild, very mild, delicate. Very delicate. But yeah, unlike fallow or red, it's got no real flavor. And that's what I reckon, like, because not many people like that real venison taste. So I reckon that's why people rate the hog deer as the best eating of all of the deer species.
Probably right there, yeah. And that varies, like the palate of different kind of demographics and different parts of the world varies a lot. So if you go to Europe, they're like, generally in Europe, they're looking for red deer, like they're looking for rutting red stags. Yeah. That's what they want to eat, because they want that strongest kind of flavor that they can get, and that's what they really appreciate, and that's just what they like.
Yeah, I've got German heritage, and I tend to like eating like fallow bucks during April and red stags and stuff like that. I like that real strong flavor, so that's probably where I get it from.
It more than likely is, and it's not just a random thing. Like it probably is actually genetic. It's probably like these things are real things. They're not just things that are like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like this, it's probably actually scientifically real. What you just said, it's probably because of your heritage that's still with you. It's like your ancestors were there eating red deer, probably hunting red deer with a bow.
Yeah, exactly.
5 generations ago or 6 generations ago. That's probably how they survived.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've never thought of it like that. So that's good to know. So I'll just attribute that to when people say, "Why do you like eating bucks during the rut?" There you go.
Yeah, I'm German. Yeah, I don't mind hoggy. I like it, but yeah, like you're exactly on the money there. Like it's not. It doesn't have as much. Yeah, it's a little bit. I find it very delicate. I love it. Like I still love it, but like it is definitely different to the others. It's funny, over my life, I like for many years I really had Rooster at the top of my list. Yeah. For probably 10 years I had Rooster at the top and Chittle number 2, and that's changed in the last few years. I've probably about 3 or 4 years ago, somehow in my brain that just number 1 and 2 positions swapped over, and Chittle is at number 1 now and Rooster's at number 2.
Chittle's nice. Seeker's always been at the top of my list since I had it in New Zealand.
It's awesome.
That's really nice. I put
right up there, right?
I put whitetail below fallow, like quite low on the list, but I'm not sure if it's just because I was chasing Mexican whitetail, so it's they're in that real dry, deserty area, because they do get a lot of their flavor from what they're eating and where they're from. Right. So, if you shot a whitetail up in, say, Alberta, where it's, they're a big-bodied animal and lots of feed and stuff like that, I'm sure they'd taste quite different.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Their flavor's definitely affected by their diet. I've eaten whitetail, but to be honest, I just can't really. It mustn't have been very noteworthy because I can't remember what it tasted like. To be honest, I have eaten it, but yeah, I just can't really. Well, we ate a lot in New Zealand. That's right. Yeah. Well, I have eaten a fair bit over there at Stewart Island, so it was all pretty good over there. But to be honest, we weren't very classy with our cooking. We were mostly making a recipe called popcorn venison, which is basically really small little pieces of venison chopped up, deep fried, like popcorn chicken.
That sounds good.
But it was so good. Yeah, it was awesome. But you didn't that's not really doing the thing, like doing the meat really a lot of justice, really making popcorn venison. But it was absolutely lovely. Yeah, we ate a lot over there at Stewart Island. But
I could imagine those Stewart Island whitetail being like, they're small, but they're a chunky animal. But
I just don't remember much of the actual flavour compared to other deer. Yeah, whereas other deer, I've just got a bit more memory of what that flavour was like. But it's the same when you go to Africa and anywhere really, any part of the world, and you start to compare these different species. Like Africa's interesting, like I almost kind of figured out over there that it's sort of like the uglier the animal, the kind of the better the meat was, and the prettier animals were the most bland.
Yeah,
so
wow.
the most unimpressive for me were kudu and impala.
Yeah, wow.
And to me, they're two of the prettiest, most visually kind of attractive kind of species. They're just beautiful animals. My favorites were wildebeest and warthog.
Yeah, cool.
Over there.
What's warthog like?
Just like super yummy pork.
Yeah.
Like just, yeah. We didn't eat a lot of it, but the bits that I had they were just, yeah, like really, really, really yummy. Like better than any pork that I've had. Maybe I had a really good dish. Maybe I just had good experiences, but that really stayed with me, the feeds of warthog that I had. Wildebeest was great. Eland was really great as well. But yeah, it was surprising, and like, even though they're like, a lot of those animals are antelopes and they're kind of in the same general family, like just the difference between each species of antelope was just so significant, like even more than the difference between, say, fallow, reds, rusa, like even more of a flavor difference between those deer species. So it's really interesting. It's interesting, and the only way you're going to find out what these things taste like is to go and taste them, really. Yeah,
that's, my youngest, he's constantly wants to go hunt Africa, so it will be on the cards one day when he's a little bit older. We're at the barbers the other day, and I was talking to the barber who cuts my hair, and she was telling me how she wants to go duck hunting with her dad, because her dad's a Italian bloke who does a lot of duck hunting, and duck hunting season's just kicked off here. And Ollie, my 3-year-old, starts going on. He's like, "Oh, we went hunting rabbits and hares the other day," and he's like, "We scun them, we ate them," and then she turns around, "Oh, what else do you hunt?" And he goes, "Oh, deer, tigers."
Tigers. Good on him.
I'm just like, yeah, mate, we don't hunt tigers. But yeah, constantly he's like, "I want to go to," like, I'm like, "What do you want to go hunt?" And he goes, "Elephants. I want to go hunt elephants." I'm like, "That's my boy."
Well, that should be encouraged, and like it's obviously you've got to pull them up when they start to mention species that aren't actually legal to hunt anywhere. But yeah, that's awesome. That I don't think that should be discouraged. Like, we can hunt elephants. We can legally hunt elephants, and elephants need to be hunted.
Yeah, exactly.
Elephants need to be hunted, and there is a real role for hunters every single year to be hunting elephants. So I certainly wouldn't. I don't think that's something that should be discouraged. Or it can definitely get controversial, particularly with some of these in inverted commas charismatic megafauna.
Yeah.
Like, as we know, that it can get controversial, and you're well aware of that, and so am I. And
my controversy.
Yeah, like these things can get controversial, and but at the end of the day, when like scientifically and just in terms of what is best for these species and the communities within where they live, we know, unfortunately not everyone knows, but we know that these things are this is the right tact. This is the right way to go. I don't want to hunt an elephant myself. I don't have any interest whatsoever. But if it's just not something I want to do, but I absolutely will go out to bat for anyone who says they do.
Yeah, 100%
and that's
the same.
Something that we all need to be very aware of. That, I think, is that even though you personally, like, we all have our own taste, right? Like you are naturally attracted to certain families of species and certain species in particular. So am I. I think about it all the time, like how this comes about. But we all have different particular animals and particular species and particular families of species that we're interested in. For instance, one of my best mates, he loves hunting bears.
Yeah.
Like he's already shot most of them. He's shot a few. I just don't really have a lot of interest in bears.
Yeah, wow.
And I'd probably shoot a black bear, I reckon. Like if the opportunity came up, but it's not really high on my list of priorities right now. There's about 100 other things that are in front of that. But when someone wants to talk to me about bear hunting, I find that it is my responsibility to know enough about it to be able to back that up on behalf of the rest of all of our global community, to know the facts and know how these things work, and to be able to not say the right things, because it's not about saying the right things. It's about just speaking factually about how these things actually work, and supporting supporting anyone who hunts anything legally. Really, is what it comes down to. Exactly. Anything that's hunted legally and sustainably and ethically should be supported, and should be supported by any other hunter. And it doesn't matter if they're a bow hunter or they hunt with dogs or rifles or whatever. We really need to get better at that, and I think that's amongst our many problems as a global community at the moment. That's one thing that we all need to get better at is being smart enough to be able to defend anything that's ethical and legal and done sustainably, and just going the extra mile to know about this stuff, like to just get the facts, understand how things work in Africa, understand what the model is in North America, understand that how things work in Australia is the complete flip side to really the rest of the world.
Yeah.
When you're talking about conservation, like the model of the hunting conservation model in most parts of the world is completely different to ours.
Yeah.
It's basically flipped on its head, and you need to understand the mechanics of that, and you need to be able to talk confidently about it, and you really need to be able to educate the uneducated. And that's a thing in this country right now, is that most of the population in our country, in Australia, they don't really have a strong opinion about hunting. They don't really know much about it. They probably don't know a hunter. They probably don't have a cousin or an uncle or a mate or anyone in their circle who is a hunter who they've had enough exposure to actually know what hunting is and who hunters are. So you've got to imagine that's how most of our population is. You and I don't know any different because we're hunters. We can't imagine what that's like. We can't put ourselves in those shoes because we're not in those shoes, where you and I are hunters, where we know hunting and we know hunters. But the vast majority of the population have no idea about what a hunter is in this modern day and age in 2023 and who we are. So you've really got to think about, you've got to know a bit of shit.
Yeah,
you've got to know a bit of stuff and be able to speak confidently about it and try and provide these sort of people that are on the fence that probably, it probably depends who they're sitting around the dinner table with in terms of which way they swing.
Yeah.
They might have some mates who are super anti-hunting, and they might sit around and agree with them one night, and then they're sitting with you in a different circle of friends the next night and agreeing with you and going, oh yeah, that's awesome. Like hearing your stories and going, oh, that's so cool. You're hunting these deer and you're providing meat for your family and you're teaching your kids all of these skills, and you're like, that's how most of our population is. They're on the fence.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have a strong view. So we need to be aware of that at the moment.
That's actually a podcast I want to do now that I've got a mobile recorder, is head down in Adelaide. We got a shopping complex called Rundle Mall, and it's like a big open mall with shops either side. It's where all the hipsters and all of that go shopping. I actually want to go down there with the recorder and just chat to people. What is your understanding of hunting? What do you think of hunters? If I explain hunting to you like this, does it change your mind? Like, what do you think of the government shooting deer and just leaving them to rot, And all of that stuff, bring that to the attention and just see what, the public actually thinks, because I deliver to tradies all day, every day. I deliver plasterboard and, I'm having this chat, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going hunting. oh, what are you hunting? Oh, deer. What? There's deer here. And then going through, and oh, what do you do with the deer? Oh, I eat it. I got a big 500-liter chest freezer. My family doesn't live off of hunted game entirely, but it's a strong substitution for other stuff that we eat. So, it's deer one night, beef the next, chicken the next, then it's, goat, rabbit, fish, all of that stuff, and explaining that to them. And quite often they're really, really interested in it. So, yeah, that's a avenue I want to go down and start chatting to people in the actual city of Adelaide and be like, hey, what's your thoughts on hunting and hunters? And then, just break it down like that. But I reckon that's kick it back to where you started. How did you get into hunting and fishing?
Yeah, well, it's a fairly I feel very, very lucky. Like I was kissed on the ass by or kissed on the whatever by a whatever when I was born. Basically, my dad was full on into bow hunting when I was born. I was born in 1984, so I'm 38 now, and my dad got into bow hunting in the mid 70s with a bunch of mates. It was just a good combination of I think him and his mates. They definitely hunted with rifles and hunted with dogs a little bit, like at the end of high school and sort of probably after that a little bit. But there was just up in that part of the world in Tully, there was just a combination of people who just got into bow hunting at the same time, and it was the right combination. They started a club, the Tully Bowhunters, which is still going now. They got right into it. They just got right into it. And bow hunting was sort of, I guess they were the days when Fred Bear was like doing his thing, and like there was like it was really going through a growth phase in the US, which is where most of our modern sort of bow hunting culture originates from, as you know. And Dad was just hunting flat out when I was born, and I was just surrounded by most of his mates were bow hunters when I was a kid, and I was shooting a bow when I was really young and going to the Bowhunters Club, and I was around really serious bow hunters at a really young age, and I mean surrounded. Like I was around the campfire listening to stories. There was no internet. There was no, you know what I mean? Like it was a totally different time back then, and you can just imagine, it probably is hard to imagine for someone else really what that was like. But I was just in the thick of it, mate. Like just right in the thick of it. And when I mean in the thick of it, like it was all pigs. There was really nothing else on the agenda. At that stage, there was deer. Like some deer species weren't even legal to hunt. You couldn't even hunt red deer in Queensland at that stage. I'm not sure about the other states, but I think chital deer only became legal to hunt in '92.
Yeah, wow.
So deer weren't really on the agenda. We had ABA targets with deer on them. So like they were sort of like this obscure kind of animal that we knew was somewhere, but we didn't know where they were really. Goats were a thing, but goats were so far away from that part of the world that they weren't really hunted much. So you had to, if you lived in Tully, you had to drive like a long, long way to hunt goats, whereas I guess the southern states had more access to goats. But being in Tully, like the Cape's right there, so there's a lot of those fellas had amazing access to not only the Cape but also the basalt wall, which is also a mecca for pig hunting. Like that's where Pacific bow hunting safaris has been set up for a fair few years now. Like originally set up by Billy Baker back in the day, and the wall was a mecca and the Cape was a mecca, and so Tully's between those two spots. So pig hunting was it. Measuring tusks was it, and it was all about hunting big boars with bows. And like the club I grew up in when I was a kid, sights were banned, and like basically anyone with a compound was sort of not a very popular character. Like if you had a compound, you're sort of a bit of a wanker, really. Like, and I'm not joking. That's how it was.
Yeah, exactly.
We all had longbows and recurves.
Yeah.
Like we only shot longbows and recurves, and anyone else was sort of not taken that seriously. And I guess that was just the culture I was surrounded by, and I just followed Dad around up the Cape from quite a young age, and was put into some pretty hairy situations from a young age, and saw a lot of pigs. Like shot with bows before I had my chance to shoot one. So I witnessed a lot of activity before I was old enough to really put an arrow on myself. And I killed the first pig I ever shot at, which was in 1994, almost at the tip of Cape York, right in quite a remote area, which we'd never been there before, and we've never been there since. And that was the first pig I ever shot at with my 30-pound longbow. I'll never forget it. I was with Dad and Bill Hill. Bill Hill was, he was just one of the, he's just one of the most amazing humans I've ever had the pleasure of being around. Just a character. They just don't make them like him anymore. Like there's just no one around in this generation that's ever going to be anything like what he was.
Yeah.
He was just an incredible craftsman, incredible mate, incredible hunter, and an incredible shot with any bow he picked up. Just an absolute freak with anything. He'd pick up a longbow that he'd never shot before and just hit the A zone every shot. Like just a freak. And he still has the second biggest bore ever shot with the bow, as you probably would have noticed in the record books. He still has the number 2 bore that's ever been taken in this country with a bow. So yeah, Dad and Bill were there. Like out of all the people in the world that I could have ever dreamed of being there to witness that moment, they were there. And I shot my first pig, and
that's awesome.
To me, that's still my most special animal, mate. Like that's like I think when you build up to that over a number of years, and you've sort of looked forward to that moment for a long time, and you've been around pigs, and you've been around hunting, and sort of been frothing for so long, and then your moment finally comes. Like, I don't think any animal I'll ever take will ever top that one. My first ever animal, to be honest.
How old were you?
11.
11. Wicked.
Yeah, and I guess after that, I don't want to sort of try and I don't want to take too long, but basically, just to give you the short version from there, like I hunted pigs with Dad flat out till from when I was 5 to still now. We still got the Cape now, so I haven't stopped hunting pigs. But there was a very special moment in 1990. It was either 95 or 96, and Dad came home. He'd been doing a course with a bunch of other landowners and farmers and stuff down in Townsville. He came home, and I still remember where I was sitting when he told me in my parents' house. And he walked into the house and said, "Ben, guess what? I've met a bloke that's got deer on his property." And that moment just totally, just nothing was the same from that very moment. Like nothing's ever been the same since that moment, eh? Because within about 3 months, we were out there. We were hunting these chittle deer with our longbows, and just had no chance in hell. Like, just had absolutely no chance in hell of getting it done with the gear that we had. Like, it's a big undertaking trying to get a chittle deer with a longbow, as you know. Not many people have ever done it. Deep learning curve, and adding on another species, like suddenly going from a one species thing, like where pigs were everything and there was nothing else that we ever hunted, suddenly hunting chittle deer, and like that just changed everything. And I think within about 2 years, it was 1998, I got my first compound bow. I saved up $800 and bought a Martin Firecat. Around that time, like most of those Martin were a really popular brand then. Like Matthews weren't really, I don't think Matthews really existed then, and Hoyts were around, and PSEs were around and that, but Martin were a very popular brand then. And that particular year, the factory, to keep everyone working during the winter, they just made a heap of this particular model, this Martin Firecat. They just made like millions of them, and therefore they were priced really cheaply the following year. And I saved up $800 to buy this Martin Firecat in 1998, and I shot that bow for 10 years. I didn't get a new bow till 2008. But I guess to try and summarize it, I guess my desire to take a deer with a bow outgrew my love for hunting with traditional gear. And I, over time, convinced myself that I never thought I'd ever shoot a compound. When I was like 12 or something, I never ever ever imagined ever shooting a compound. Like it was just not possible. But deer changed me, and particularly chittle deer changed me, and I ended up getting a compound, and I think it was the next year, 99, I got my first deer.
That's awesome.
Dave Keeble was with me. It was just Dave Keeble and I were out there. Dad wasn't there that trip, and it was just this magical moment stalking in on this stag, and I'll never ever forget it. He was rubbing on a tree, and he wasn't a big stag. Like he was only a fairly young stag, but that was perfect for me being a young stag myself, and got in and pulled an amazingly. Just smoked him, just a really nice shot. He took about 2 steps and fell over, and I just burst into tears. And I was just after hunting them for pretty solidly for, I think it was by that stage, 3 or 4 years. It felt like a lifetime, but it felt like I'd invested a lot of my life into those deer. And to get my first one down, it was a massive, massive moment to get that first deer. And I'll never forget going back to the homestead that night and I'll never forget that moment. Just telling him, I've got it done. I've got one. And
that's awesome.
I still hunt chittle deer now. They'll probably always be my favorite deer to hunt. I love all the deer in a different sort of way, but they'll probably always be my favorite. Because they were the first. And just in a real briefly, from there, just hunted just solely pigs and chittle deer throughout the rest of school, high school, even my uni days. Like when I was sort of going through uni, I didn't really make any friends at uni that were hunters. I just sort of was doing my own thing, and I'd come back on holidays and go hunting with Dad, either at the Cape or out chasing deer at our chittle block. And it was really those 2 species and nothing else. And it was only when I really got a good job and started to have a career, and that was when the floodgates opened, I guess. And I did my very first guided hunt, an actual paid guided hunt in 2009. That was for buffalo up in the Northern Territory. I decided to reward myself for finally getting through uni, which took a longer time than what would be reasonably expected. Since then, I've just let's be honest, I've just gone nuts since then. It's just been one thing after the other and one dream after the other, and we all have our own sort of goals and our own sort of we all have our own dreams. There's certain things that and that changes. You'll dream about one thing and that'll be a goal, and then when you live that dream and you sort of accomplish that goal, then it easily just turns into something else, and
it does,
and that's just an ongoing process. And I've just gone nuts. The last what are we on into 2023 now? So I guess the last 15 years I've just had the opportunities to do a lot of stuff. A lot of hunting, and that's involved going overseas to different places that I've wanted to go to, and staying to my roots, and still going up the Cape with my mates and my family, and still going out hunting chittle deer, and just exploring Australia and New Zealand and the things that are kind of close and accessible. And I've just had so many. I've just had such an amazing I guess run of luck with the people that I've come in contact with, the mates that I've made, the contacts that I've made, and the experiences that I've had. And you got to make it happen, it's not like I've just it's not like it's just all fallen in my lap. You've got to have a goal or a dream or an idea to start with, and then usually once you have that idea, it just grows legs from there, and it's just been a progression from there. But hopefully that didn't take too long to explain, that's a bit of a summary anyway.
No, I love listening to it all. There's two really there's 2 accounts that I love watching the old school memories on. Actually, probably 3. Yours being one of them, seeing all the photos of you as a young lad out there chasing boars. I haven't even seen a feral pig in Australia yet. Being in
That's
South.
crazy.
Yeah, it's Yeah.
I guess South Australia, there's not many, eh? Or zero.
I've done a couple. No, there's Kangaroo Island had a healthy population for a while, but I've come in on that end where there's not as many these days. So I've done about 4 trips over there and seen 3 dead ones. They get dogged pretty hard over there. Scotty Meadows is another amazing account, like seeing all the young, like the photos of him as a young lad, and Dave Whiting, seeing all of his stuff, like just insane stuff. I actually got to take Dave out for a stalk probably about 6 years back. He was sister-in-law or someone lives in a town close by to me, and I said, hey, passing through, we'll catch up. And yeah, dropped in and took him for a walk around one of my goat blocks and took him around the Adelaide Hills and just showed him the abundance of game we have through the Adelaide Hills. And he was blown away. He's like, I did not expect Adelaide and the Adelaide Hills and surrounding areas to have so much game. And yeah, he was blown away. But yeah, watching all of his stuff, seeing, all the rabbits, foxes and cat stuff that he shares quite a bit is just spectacular. And then yeah, the stuff that you and Scotty Meadows post, just it's awesome seeing how far you guys have progressed in bow hunting. And then, I can't even remember when I started following you, but it probably would have been around the same time as you shot your sheep. So what year was that you went out?
I got a bighorn in 2015. Bighorn sheep, yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been probably maybe just before you shot that. And then, yeah, just seeing all the progression of Australian bow hunters going abroad and just seeing all the different game, it's an insane thing to, like, because, I've come into it, chasing goats and fallow deer. And, I grew up shooting goats with rifles with my grandparents and foxes, rabbits, all of that stuff. And then just seeing this worldwide of bow hunting and Australians getting out there. Like my first intro to bow hunting was bow fishing. So my dad took me out bow fishing, went back to his house, and he put on a bow hunting DVD. It was Casey McCullum. So one of those DVDs that Casey put out there. And I think I watched that about 100 times that week.
Yeah,
I just sat there on repeat watching that Casey McCullum DVD. And
so awesome, yeah.
That was my intro to bow hunting. And, and then being able, it was that time where you just added everyone on Facebook in the hunting community and being able to chat to Casey and then, meeting yourself at the deer expos and like just all these, like how small the Australian hunting community is, being able to chat to these people and get a better understanding of what to do, what not to do, and being able to see where you can go if you put the time and effort in has been a huge eye opener for myself coming into it, 10-ish years ago.
I think you should consider yourself lucky to have taken Whiting for a walk, because to me, that's a privilege and an honour that you've had there to take him for a walk and go for a hunt with him, because I was thinking I was driving around yesterday and I'm sick of hearing the word legend, because it's just it's totally losing value and it's losing meaning at the moment. We need to come up with another word, and maybe that's
embarrassing. I introed the podcast.
No, we need to come up with another word or some sort of, maybe a few different words, but Whiting's not you just can't call him a legend, because it's just not even slightly close to doing him justice as a person and a human and a man and a bow hunter and everything else, a father, everything else that he is. There's just no words that I know of that describe a person like him. And just and in particular what he's given to bow hunting in this country, I think that's probably what it boils down to a lot. And there's a few there's a few others in his sort of league, I guess, that have just provided so much, not only at a grassroots level, like just offering assistance to someone they've never even met at a random shoot or at an archery event or whatever, or taking someone on their wing to take hunting or whatever, but at so many levels, some of these guys have just provided so much back into our community and into our pastime and just Australian bow hunting.
Exactly.
It's immeasurable. It's immeasurable, and like there's a few in that category, and so I'm stoked for you, mate. That you've even got to. I'm stoked that you have even got to go for a walk with Dave. That's a big tick in a big box as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it was a cool day. You know, he passed through, and I seen he was coming to Adelaide. And I said, "Hey, man, if you want to come out for a shoot and go for a walk around, I'm more than happy to take you out and show you my deer properties and goat properties and just have a walk." And yeah, we went.
That's what he's like.
Went to one of my goat properties and, you know, had a call for some foxes. Didn't get any in, but yeah, spotted some goats, and we just sat there talking shit and just walking through, and took him down to the bottom of the gully, and he's like, "Oh, we'll just go up this way," and took us through the biggest blackberry choked gully you had ever seen. You know, he's wearing his 3D, you know, he's got his 3D camo on, and it's getting all caught up. I reckon there's still some of his ghillie suit in the bottom of that gully. And yeah, he's just taking us through the biggest choked blackberry gully you would ever seen. And it was
he
a good
can
laugh.
walk, eh?
Oh,
like,
he can.
He can walk, and even still now, like you can't tire him out. Like he is just a death marcher, eh? Like he just does not stop. But what inspires me the most is like I just hope that when I'm his age, I've got that much keenness still in me and that much fire still in me, eh? Because it has not his the froth inside him has not diminished at all over so many years. Like I've been hunting with him fairly recently. I think the last time would have been less than 6 months ago, but he's keener than me. Like he is so keen, and he's done so much hunting for so many years, and he is still so keen. So like he inspires me. Like I hope that I'm like that when I'm his age. I hope that I still have the fire and still have the passion when I'm in my 50s and my 60s, and I hope to just keep hunting till I can't walk. That's my goal.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, there's been a lot of characters like that have come through the ranks at different stages, and they've all existed and lived in different phases. You know, like we've all been born and been exposed to Australian bow hunting at different different times, and been involved in different areas. Like the cultures are going to vary a little bit between, like, say, somewhere like Tully and somewhere like Adelaide. You know, like they're completely different parts of the country, and also that time factor as well. Like there's people like Dave that they were around in the very early days and were actively bow hunting when bow hunting was only just sort of becoming a thing in this country, and he's still going flat out now. Look at Ian Fenton. Ian Fenton was sort of I call him the godfather, but he basically, like, he really kicked things off in this country. He's 82. He shot a friggin' bantang last year with his 60-pound recurve up at Coburg.
Yeah, I've seen those photos.
Totally ridiculous. Like at 82 years old, to be out there. He had a big break from bow hunting. He sort of was like mostly focused on archery for a fair while there, and he's just what he's achieved and what he's contributed. Most people will just never even have the slightest inkling of what he's contributed to what we love in this country, but it happened and it's there, and there's just so much history, and so many different characters have been involved at different levels and contributed different things over time, and that's where I feel a bit lucky. Is I was young enough to sort of see that old school sort of side of things when like before the internet, I guess, and before social media, and I really saw that, I guess, the back end of the old school. But then I grew through the internet age and the social media age, and I've witnessed that whole thing unfold into what it is today, and I've witnessed the changes in bow hunting over that time, and seen, I guess, the good and the bad and the ugly of how things have changed. And there's some really positive there's some really positive things. There's a lot of really big positives that have come, and there's a lot of negatives as well. And I don't know which one outbalances the other, to be honest, compared to what I knew when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I think the real true spirit of bow hunting, like the real true spiritual kind of side of what Australian bow hunting means and what it is, has been lost a little lately. But there's been plenty of positives as well. Like back then, they weren't sitting around the fire talking about mid-Asian ibex or anything like that. Like it was different. Times changed. Like it's just part of this planet. Like things change over time, and that's just the way nature is. Technology
changes.
Yeah, it's just the way it is, and we've just got to accept it as it is. And I think what's most important is if you're doing things ethically and you're being a good person and you're having fun. At the end of the day, we're having fun, aren't we? We're not out there being all serious and
yeah.
It's not like we're going to work or something. Like at the end of the day, it's fun and it's like I think if you're doing things right by other people and doing things right by the law and passing, this is really our cultural heritage, and I don't care what anyone says. Bow hunting is our cultural heritage. It is.
Yeah.
And it's really strange. Like this is a real interesting fact, and I'm going to tell you. I was actually reading a document today at work. I was literally at my desk at work, and I happened to be reading this document that actually defined what intangible cultural heritage actually is under the United Nations definition. I'm going to read it to you right now. I'm just pulling up the email.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm going to quote it right now. Intangible cultural heritage is defined as the practices, representations, expressions, knowledge, and skills, and the instruments, objects, artifacts, and cultural spaces associated therewith that communities, groups, and in some cases individuals recognize as part of their cultural heritage. That is the definition by UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. That is UNESCO. If you want me to send that to you, I will. But if I read that again, pretty much every word in that sentence screams bow hunting.
Exactly.
To me. It is, and we need to start saying that a little bit more often. Like, it's not just something we do for food. It's not something we just do for fun. I hate using the word sport because it's certainly not a sport.
Yeah, I hate that.
We don't kick balls around or tackle each other or try and hit a ball into a hole. Like, it's not a sport. It's way more than that.
It's a lifestyle.
And way bigger than that. It is part of our cultural heritage as human beings. We are a species. We are a species that happen to develop on this planet. And that is a massive, massive part of our history as a species, and therefore it is part of our cultural heritage. And virtually every single place where humans existed and developed over the last several hundreds of thousands of years, bows were it. Bows were what we had.
Yeah.
That's how we developed. That's how we became what we are right now. And not, like it or not, that's a massive part of our history and a massive part of how we got to this point right here in time where you and I are talking to each other over a computer and you know what I mean? Like, that's how we got here. That's a massive part of how we got here.
And that's the real the real bummer with this whole proposed South Australian bow hunting ban. I know that it's like my good mate, Ilias, Action Man on Instagram. He's a massive trad shooter, loves his trad bows. But with all the proposed bow hunting ban stuff, he's just gone I've been cut up about it. He's been cut up about it. And, we've just been bouncing ideas off of each other. The cultural things come up a few times, his heritage, his ancestors are from Papua New Guinea. So,
wow.
Bow, he's had a reed bow like a cultural reed bow since he was a baby. You know, it's in his blood to bow hunt, and you know, it's been a real dampener on everyone in South Australia that bow hunts and hunts with this. And that's one thing that people have been arguing. It is our culture. It is who we are. It's a lifestyle. You know, I could not imagine not bow hunting, and I don't imagine, like, I will never stop bow hunting. You know, whether I have to travel interstate or overseas to do it, I won't be I won't be stopping doing it. So yeah, it's a tough one here in South Australia with that, and sadly, I think if South Australia does fall, other states are going to follow. I reckon New South Wales would be the next one, if not WA. Even though there's not a great deal of game over there, but it
very nearly happened in WA not that long ago. There was a time not very long ago, probably a bit over 10 years, probably 10 or 12 or 14 years ago. I can't remember the exact year, but it nearly happened in WA, and like it was very, very close. There was a few incidents that happened over there, and like, I wish I had the answers, mate, and I wish I could do more. And I feel a little bit guilty for not doing more at times, apart from writing letters and sharing things on social media and that. But at the end of the day, I've sort of come to the point now where I just think what will be will be, and I think that we're either going to learn from a big smack on the bum and a big lesson, or we're not. We're just gonna continue the way we are, which is very unorganized, very uncoordinated, very just completely just no unity whatsoever. It's been like this for years now.
That's just the hunting and shooting community in general. Though. That's not just bow hunters.
And that's right. And it's I think a lot of us sort of have got into this sort of comfort zone where we think that these organisations are going to look after everything, and they don't have they simply don't have what it takes at the most basic level to be dealing with this stuff. They don't have the funding. People get burnt out. And it is just a product. To me, it's just, I hate to be so simplistic, but it's just a product of where society is at, that we are, like, our ancestors would be just rolling in their graves thinking, are you serious? Like, there is enough people lobbying the government about this particular issue compared to all the other things that are going on in the world right now. This is enough of an issue for people that they want to stop it. It's just hard to even fathom. But that's where society is at. That's how fucked up we are as a species right now. That's an indicator of how fucked up we are as a species on this planet. That's where we've got to. That there are people who are sitting there worrying about you going and hunting animals with a bow. Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. Let's face it. That's where we are at right now.
But it's also
just hard to comprehend.
It's also funny though that across Europe, these countries that have had bow hunting banned for years are now reversing those bans across it. Bulgaria, that was one of it. You were one of the first bow hunters over there.
They legalized it in 2009. I only started hunting there in about 2016 or something. Yeah. But you're dead right. You're exactly right. The European Bow Hunting Union, and like they've done a lot of work over there. The reason why it was frowned upon over in Europe was because the bow was, or the major reason was because the bow was always considered as a poaching weapon. Yeah. Because it made no noise. Robin Hood. There was a Robin Hood and his mate. So there was a period there, like obviously after rifles became, like basically after any kind of gun became a thing, that bows were used in a way that was, bows were used to poach. Yeah. In a lot of parts of Europe, because people could get away with it because they weren't making any sound. And that's why, that's a major reason why it was made illegal in a lot of countries over there. But things are changing. Look at Russia; it's the biggest country in the world, and they've just got it over the line there a few years ago. So bow hunting's legal in Russia now after God knows when it was actually made. I don't actually know when it was made illegal. I should know that, but I don't. But I know now it's legal, and that's the biggest chunk of land on this whole planet. And there's really great efforts happening. They're slowly making ground. They're making ground in Europe all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if Austria and Germany and
what's the trad guy's name over there? He did a fair bit of bow hunting down here. He's been
yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah, from Denmark. He's a crazy bastard. Yeah. God, I'm so bad with names.
Hunted with Carl Brown and
yeah, he stayed at my house. Yeah.
you starts with a U.
I feel so bad.
Ulrich
Orskov. Yeah. Ulrich. Yeah. So Ulrich, like great advocate. Yeah, he's a vet actually. He's studied veterinary science, but like it's they're winning over there. They're slowly.
He's been doing awesome work. I think he's a part of the reason that bow hunting's been legalized in Denmark. From my understanding, and he does all the training courses. Hunts the roe deer and all that with the trad gear, and that's insane to see.
So I think we've got to be like Australia is sort of generally behind in a lot of things. Like when you look at a lot of other facets of society, I guess Europe is generally going to be ahead of the ball game. Like they're certainly not behind. They're usually in front with a lot of things. Yeah. I think we've got to be very aware of those sorts of issues and what they're doing and sharing knowledge, like and especially science-based knowledge, like what the Ashby found. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Ashby Foundation, but just science-based studies, which is what holds weight. It's not you and I sharing things on Facebook that holds weight. It's science at the end of the day. That's what we've created around us in terms of our society. It's got to have some science behind it. Yeah, so the Ashby Foundation, they're doing some amazing work at the moment, and anyone that doesn't know what they're doing, if you're a bow hunter, you need to know, and you need to go and follow them, and you need to support them. To be honest, like you need to get up to speed with this. If I may be blunt, yeah, that's what I would say. There's a lot of stuff happening there, and we all need to be aware of this stuff and understanding like what's going on where and how we can be involved. Sharing stuff on Facebook and Instagram has extremely minimal value in terms of actually making shit happen. It's very, very it's just an echo chamber. We're all seeing the same shit and sharing the same shit to each other and sort of not really. A lot of us don't really look out of our own little sort of circle and our own sphere of what's going on. And
it's the letter campaigns that really do
That's a big deal too. That's a great thing. Letter campaigns do make a difference, and it's so easy to be lazy and not take that 5 minutes or take the time. It's so easy to just go, oh no, everyone else will do it. Like I'm not going to make a difference, but that does make a difference.
Yeah,
letter campaigns absolutely make a difference.
It really does. Daniel from Firearm Owners United, he wrote up one of the letters for the proposed bow hunting ban on behalf of Firearms Owners United, and he's done stuff for suppressors in Australia and stuff like that, and he's getting really, really good results through these letters. So yeah, if you're listening and you haven't done it, Firearm Owners United have the letter template for the proposed bow hunting ban, and also Chaser as well, or Chaser, whatever they are. They have a great letter as well for people to go through. Chuck your postcode in. If you don't, it shouldn't be really an Australian-wide thing, so just Google a Adelaide postcode and chuck that postcode in.
Yeah, that's right. There's easy ways. Yeah, there's easy ways around those little technicalities, isn't there? Yeah,
exactly.
But no, it's an interesting time, mate. Like it's it's very scary. It's very, very scary what's potentially happening in SA. We don't really have all the answers yet. I don't know. I don't think anything's happened for certain. Nothing's really set in concrete yet. But, we all need to be doing whatever we can because, isn't it going to be a shit feeling when we go, oh, wish I had just done a little bit more, or I wish I had listened to what he said, or listen to what, you know what I mean? Like I just, it's going to be a really shit feeling to look back and it's harder to get things back after they're lost than defending them in the first place and keeping them in place. It's a hell of a lot harder trying to win something back, but it's what will be will be. That's one thing I've sort of learned in my life is what will be will be. You've got to do everything you can and can't just sort of sit back and accept everything that happens. But at the end of the day, what will be, and we will our chickens will come home to roost. So whether we get it right or whether we haven't got it right, our chickens will come home to roost, and we'll only know in due course.
Exactly. What are your thoughts? It's been thrown around for the bow hunting community in Australia for a while, and even more so now that these proposed bans and Tasmania ban and all of those things, like a proficiency course to be able to bow hunt. So that's what Ulrich's doing through Denmark. He runs these courses. What do you think? Even though that they're a barrier to entry,
Well, there's a lot of history to this. And I'm not an authority on any of this at all, but I've sort of witnessed a fair bit of stuff and seen a fair bit of. I've seen sort of the different politics over the years and the different organisations and the different characters that have been in positions of power over various phases. And I have seen a fair bit of stuff go down over the years. And let's face it, the ABA do have a proficiency course. They do have a proficiency course, but I don't know one serious, that's probably a pretty brazen thing to say, but I don't actually know one serious bow hunter that is a member of ABA.
No.
And that's a problem. Why? Why is that? Why is that? Why am I not a member of ABA? I can give you 1,000 reasons why I'm not, but I'm not. And they are allegedly right now the peak, in inverted commas, peak bow hunting organisation in this country. And whatever formula they've attempted to run over the last 3 or 4 decades has not worked. Let's face it.
Unfortunately,
there's no unity. There's no. I know we're like trying to herd a bunch of cats, but there must be a formula that creates some more unity than what there has been. And I think at the moment when things are really starting to, when there's really big risks of losing things, like, for example, being able to hunt with a bow in an entire state of our country, I don't know if we're going to get. And the way I see things working is, I think ABA just like there's a whole heap of things to think. Like there's a lot of things I would like to say, but I won't. But I think basically their downfall has been it's gone too archery focused, and there's been too much focus on making profits instead of actually protecting bow hunting.
Yeah, my thing with ABA,
there's been way too many egos as well has been a big issue, and egos have always been a problem in bow hunting from day dot.
Yeah, my thing with ABA has always been that when I first started bow hunting, I shot a few animals, and I've seen people in some of the ABA chats wanting to know how certain broadheads performed. And, just starting out, I took some photos of entries and exits of different broadheads I'd been using, posted them up in the chats, boom, kicked out of the ABA groups immediately, Can't show this stuff. I feel like they've just been in the shadows. They want to stay out of the light, and they just don't want any attention, anything that can bring the attention their way. They don't want anything to do with it. And I think that's kind of been their downfall, not really embracing hunting like you're saying.
Right now, like I can bet you any money they wouldn't have they wouldn't know how many bow hunters there are in Australia.
No.
They wouldn't be within 5,000 or 10,000 of the real figure. And bow hunting it's growing so quickly. There's so many people out there right now that are keen and want to get into it, or they've bought a bow and they're trying to get into bow hunting, and they're frothing, like they're keen and they want to make a start. But that's probably the first thing we need to know right now. How many of us are there? How many bow hunters are there in the country right now? And no one knows that answer. No one would even have the slightest clue, because the people who are in the most senior sort of the people who are most involved in it are either trying to make money out of it, so they've got shops or distributorships or whatever, and their focus is making money because that's their business. There's a lot of focus on the administration of archery, because archery is a big thing, and there's a major difference between being a bow hunter and being an archer. There's a lot of people who are both. There's a big crossover between both, but there's a lot of archers who don't care about bow hunting. They don't care if bow hunting's illegal in South Australia. They just want to go and shoot targets. Then there's a lot of people like me who aren't archers. I'm not an archer. I used to go to a lot of shoots when I was a kid, but I don't consider myself an archer. I practice at a target before I go hunting, and throughout the course of a season, I'm an archer when I'm not hunting, when I'm shooting my bow, but I don't go and do competitive archery. It's just not. I'm not interested, and I don't have the time. So you've got these different categories with different levels of care and different levels of sort of understanding of each other's position.
Yeah.
We have no idea how many bow hunters are out there, but if we did, which would be with social media these days and the way we are so connected with with the networks that we have now, I reckon if we started a campaign next week, if you and me and we listed 20 other people and said, right, we're going to find out how many bow hunters are in this country by postcode.
Yeah.
Anyone that you know is a bow hunter, let's put their name on a spreadsheet. That we don't need their bloody email address and we don't need to know their cat's name or anything like that. We just need to know just their name, like just the basic details, just their name, so we can get a count. I reckon if we put a really serious campaign together in the next 2 weeks, we would get a very accurate number of how many keen, active bow hunters there are in this country, and that would be a starting point. That would be the most basic starting point to any kind of progress forward. Then I think if there was a way of just getting us together and creating an organization or some sort of body or some sort of movement that was all about the protection and the promotion and the protecting the future of bow hunting, then that was the not measuring game, not trying to make money and buy properties that certain people can go and hunt, like just purely focused on the protection and promotion of bow hunting into the future. If you went to everyone and said, how much are you willing to chuck in per year for this? Like if I said to you, mate, how much would you be willing to chuck in per year if you knew that money was going towards actively, like a version of Blood Origins that was just purely Australian bow hunting? How much would you chuck in per year?
Look, it's a hard one, If you know the money's going to the right thing, people would be happy to chuck in, $100 a year as like as a membership.
A good answer.
If they're getting
the same.
If they're getting something back from it, you get some clubs you don't really get anything back from it, So it is a hard one. Money's always a tight thing. Then, like you said earlier, you chuck egos and people wanting stuff and to make money out of it. But yeah, if you had like a Bow Hunters of Australia group that was there to fight these issues when they come up in Parliament and stuff like that, and not hide like certain other organisations do. And stay away from the trophy side of stuff, stay away from the target side of stuff, but just put all their focus and energy into promoting archery as a clean, ethical sport, promoting ways for people to get into it so that these incidents with target tip arrows stop happening. If we put out a way, say, this is how you get into it, this is what you do, this is what you should do, this is what you don't do. You don't go around shooting kangaroos and seals and all of this with target-tipped arrows. this is why you don't, because there's not heaps of that information isn't broadly available.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many things that could be done that don't cost a huge amount of money. There's so much work that could be done, and there's so many people out there there's a lot of people in our community that have a lot to offer. There's the labor is out there, like the brains and the personalities and the general labor and everything's there. Everything's out there. It just doesn't. Whatever we've done to this point hasn't worked. Let's like, without criticizing too much, what has been done to this point has not worked, and we're not in a position where we're not in a situation where we want to be right now as Australian bow hunters.
Definitely not.
So we've really got to ask ourselves what can we do, or what ideas are there to move forward. And part of me wants to be involved in that and try and spark that off. But another part of me just goes, you know what? Like, it's probably just going to go the same way as it has for the last 30 years, and there's going to be too many different little fractures and splits and egos and disagreements and whatever. So I'm in two minds a lot of the time, mate. I don't know what the solution is, but it does worry me that I want to be able to teach my son about bow hunting and take him hunting and pass it on. I want him to pass it on to his kids and so on. Like, that's a really important part of my life, is that intergenerational passing on of skills and passing on of particularly bow hunting. So it's a massive conversation, and what you and I aren't going to have the answers tonight, but maybe we'll at least
get the conversation started.
Just spark a bit of thought maybe. And
that's the thing, I've always stayed away from clubs because of the political side of stuff. I hate politics, I hate all of that stuff, so I've always avoided all of that. And then looking back, it's like, well, if I was a member of a club, maybe the voice would be out there better. But then your egos and all of that stuff that you've mentioned earlier, dick sizing competitions and that, it's just not what it is for me. I like going out with my select group of mates, bringing on a new person in every year, a couple people, teaching them, whether it's rifle hunting or bow hunting or both, or fishing, here in South Australia, we can go bow fishing. So I take out a load of people out bow fishing, and that's their first introduction, as it was mine, to bow hunting. And that just ticks off that thing. Like, I've taken guys out bow fishing, and then they've gone out and we've got them rabbits, and then they've gone out to goats, and then they've worked their way up to deer, and I prefer that than bow hunting clubs where, you have to go there and do this, and then you have to get this many shoots in to go to do this hunt, and it seems like they just beat down people to do it the way that they want to do it, rather than actually teaching them and helping them out as best. But they do teach them and help them out as well at the same time as well. So it's a hard conversation, but let's move on to a couple of happier topics.
That's enough politics, mate.
We don't want to depress all the listeners.
No, that's enough.
What would be your top beginner tip to getting into bow hunting?
Well, that's a great question, and I've got a very, very clear answer. Spend at least a quarter of the time that you spend practicing at a target and shooting a bow and learning how to shoot it accurately, spend at least 25% of that time learning how to sharpen broadheads properly. I think this is a massive. I had a huge conversation with a Kiwi guy today, actually, about this exact thing, and it's currently, just from my observations, we're losing the plot in terms of our understanding of the importance of broadhead sharpness. It's to me it's one of my biggest bugbears. Like, I see it as a major issue. There are certain broadheads that do come sharp out of a packet, And my first bit of advice is if it says pre-sharpened, don't believe it, because not all broadheads that say pre-sharpened on the packet are sharp. They are not often sharp. The only broadheads that I've ever seen come sharp out of a packet are the ones that are replaceable blade style broadheads, like a Muzzy or a Rad or a Slick Trick or your expandable, even your expandable broadheads. Those stainless steel blades that are basically like
surgical
razor
steel
blades, surgically sharpened. They're sharp. They are sharp because you can grab one of those blades and you can shave hair off your arm. And that's sharp. When you can shave the hair cleanly off your arm, that's what's called sharp. If it doesn't do that, if the broadhead doesn't do that, you do not go hunting. Don't go hunting, because it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's a rabbit or a goat or a cat or an elephant or an ibex or a bighorn sheep. It doesn't matter what the animal is. It should not even come into your mind what the animal is or your perceived value of that animal. Or every animal should be treated exactly the same, no matter what it is. If you've made the decision to shoot an arrow at it and try and kill it with a bow, you should be giving it exactly the same level of respect. And that level of respect needs to include and needs to be at the very most important level and the most paramount level. That broadhead needs to be absolutely scary sharp. And if you can't figure it out, go and learn. Go and spend some time and learn. Research it, get some advice, figure it out. Don't just get lazy and go, oh no, that's sharp enough. It's being lost in our culture at the moment. I don't know whether it's a laziness thing with the next generation or whether it's from misinformation. I know of multiple stories of even broadhead manufacturers in this country spruiking about the fact that broadheads don't need to be that sharp and you just need to hit animals in the right place.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolute bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. And the fact that people are saying stuff like that is criminal. Accuracy and broadhead sharpness are exactly, to me, of the same importance. There's no point being able to shoot well and hit a 20-cent coin at 50 yards if you're not shooting a razor sharp broadhead at that animal. Don't go hunting.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to be hunting with a bow unless you have got ridiculously sharp broadheads on the front of your arrows. That's the number one thing. The accuracy bit, shooting a bow accurately, you can figure that out. Like you'll get there. There's so much information out there now, and like we've got people like Brad Murphy and Brad Smith and Ian Summers, and like there's a lot of really knowledgeable people being so giving with their knowledge these days, and that wasn't a thing not that long ago.
Those bow hunting seminars are they are just awesome. Absolutely just the duck's nuts. Like the fact that that's happening now is just such a pleasing thing for someone like me to see that that's happening and that is available to people. So I think like there's more knowledge out there. You've got more there's more exposure to that and more opportunity to learn than there used to be. Because when I was a kid, even when I got my first compound, that didn't exist. Like there was some sort of basic internet, but you couldn't figure out how to shoot a bow properly or how to tune a bow or time it. Like it wasn't the same. But that knowledge has grown and it's been shared a lot more. And we're lucky in this country that we've just got a lot of really awesome human beings that are willing to share that information and are even turning it into core. We do.
Anyone who's thought about it that hasn't done it, that's thinking, oh, maybe I should do that, just go and do it. Go and do it.
It's
go
insane.
And learn from these people.
It's insane how quick these things are selling out. Like like he shares that he's got 5-6 spots available, and then bam, within an hour they're all taken up. It's definitely,
and that's how it should be.
Yeah, it's definitely a valuable tool.
They should be booked out because bow hunting is growing and a lot more people are getting into it, and it's growing legs. So they should all be booked out, and they definitely would, like in those courses, definitely cover broadhead sharpness as a big thing. But we just spend so much time focusing on trying to hit a like I said, a 20-cent coin at 50 yards. Like, that's great. That's awesome. If you can do that every time, good for you. I can't hit a 20-cent coin at 50 yards every time. I certainly can't. You've got to emphasize just as much the skill of sharpening a broadhead as you do the accuracy. You need to be accurate enough to hit the vitals of that animal and put it down quickly and humanely. You absolutely need to, no matter what the animal is. Doesn't matter what the species is. You need to be able to hit the vitals, and you need to be able to place that arrow in the right spot to put it down quickly.
Yeah.
But the only way you're going to put it down quickly is with a ridiculously sharp broadhead. And the difference between a ridiculously sharp broadhead and one that's just not quite ridiculously sharp is absolutely huge if you understand how a broadhead actually works. And I think a lot of people out there, even people that have been hunting for a while now, don't actually really understand the science behind what a broadhead is actually doing when it goes through an animal and what's happening at a really micro level. What a broadhead is doing when it's razor sharp, like if you have a really super sharp broadhead, that the very edges of that broadhead, all of those cutting edges are cutting literally millions and millions of small capillaries, not just the big arteries and the big veins, not like in inverted commas popping the lungs. You're not popping anything. Your broadhead is just going through the lungs, which are a vital organ. That super sharp edge at a micro level is cutting through very cleanly millions of capillaries that all join together. The volume of blood and the cleanness of that cut can't seal quickly. There's a big difference between a tear and the kind of injury that a not sharp broadhead makes compared to what a really super sharp broadhead makes.
Yeah.
And at a micro level, when that arrow passes through an animal or passes through the vitals, there's a absolutely massive difference. And when you've done a bit of hunting, you'll start to see that. You'll start to see the difference between what damage a really super sharp broadhead does and what one that's not super sharp does. Yeah. And the advantage with that also is if you don't pull a perfect shot and if things aren't absolutely perfect and something happens, which we know it does, sometimes you don't get it absolutely perfect, that super sharp broadhead's probably still going to do the job. It's probably still going to pull that animal up and cause enough hemorrhaging that animal's body just cannot control, that it's going to bleed out, or at least pull it up pretty quickly and allow you to finish it quickly and humanely. So that's one thing that needs to be hammered. And I think, just from my own observations, that's something that's being lost in this generation that's coming through now.
And it's definitely a good thing to bring up. And as you brought up before, Dr. Ed Ashby, he goes into great depth about all of this stuff. The Meat Eater podcast, they had him on. And, I definitely learned a lot listening to him talk about how broadheads work and, his shot buffalo, Cape buffalo, just animals all around the world, just working out what the best broadhead combination is, what, two-blade, whatever. And he's shot it all. And, he breaks it down on the mechanics of a broadhead, which is
absolutely
very vital for bow hunters to know.
We all need to understand that. Like, we need to, if you're going to go bow hunting, if you want to be a bow hunter, that's like the most basic, it's the very most, like the most fundamental thing you need to understand. And many of us don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people running around that don't understand, just don't understand the actual concept at a basic level. And they understand that they've got to shoot the thing in the right spot, and they probably understand where that spot is. But this stuff's just as important. And one thing I will mention is not all broadheads are built for every purpose, and not all broadheads are easy to sharpen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variation in different techniques to sharpen broadheads. It's not, you don't just use the same tool for every different broadhead. Like you may need to customize what tools you've got, or what kind of files, or what kind of system you use for each broadhead. And some of them are real pricks to sharpen. Some of them no matter what you do, you're going to probably get frustrated and just go, oh well, this is close enough. It's not close enough. There's no such thing as close enough with broadhead sharpness. It doesn't exist. It's either shaving the hairs off your arm cleanly, or it's not. And if it's not, you don't go hunting.
So what's some tips?
That simple.
Tips from you for sharpening broadheads?
Tips from me. Either follow advice from, like, because they're all different, right? So every broadhead is different. Like some of the one piece 3-blade steel broadheads that are out, like an example is the G5 Montec. Like I still see people spruiking them as a great broadhead, and that I think they're absolutely. I think they should nearly be illegal. I just think they're an absolutely. They're very weak and very, very difficult. No matter, even if you follow G5's exact sort of description on how to sharpen them and buy their own diamond, like they've got a little diamond. This is years ago that I had them, but I tried them anyway. I didn't use them for very long. But like there are broadheads that are just virtually impossible to get razor sharp.
Yeah,
a standard 2-bladed broadhead like the Cayuga Old School is very, very easy to sharpen. There's occasions when there's variables in the hardness of the steel, and that can be a problem sometimes, and that is an issue with some broadheads. Sometimes certain batches come out where the steel's too hard and you just can't get into it. You can't sort of cut into it with whatever you're using, but any kind of 2-blade broadhead that has a reasonable blade angle on it, like there are some quite silly designs out now that have just a stupidly blunt angle on the broadhead, which achieves absolutely nothing whatsoever. It's just taking all the energy out of the broadhead and taking all the cutting power away. But there's a nice balance between the steepness of that angle of the cutting blade and the cutting width. There's no need, like you might as well just shoot a shovel. Like some of those broadheads, you might as well just put a little tiny shovel on the end of your. Like what's the point? If you shoot a really sharp shovel into like a little mini shovel that's been sharpened into an animal, like what's really the point of that? It's just silly. It's there's people out there just trying to create something just so that they can have their own little brand or their own little thing going on. But there's plenty of good broadheads out there. Like a good example is the Cayuga Old School or the Cayuga Zott. The angle's perfect. The ratio of width to length is perfect. So you've got that optimum angle on the cutting edge. And for me, like I use what's called a bog file to get them to really get them sharp to begin with. Bog file, I think I've always heard that they're used by panel beaters, and there was a bloke, an old legend, Dave Pender, who's still around. He's still actively hunting, but Dave used to make a product called the Razor's Edge broadhead sharpener, which is essentially a bog file mounted on a piece of timber. They're probably about a foot long, roughly a foot long, and you basically just drag each side of each blade along that bog file backwards towards yourself. Giving an equal number of strokes on each side. That to me is my surefire way of getting any 2-blade broadhead sharp. Like I know that's unless the steel has been hardened so much that it's just so hard that those teeth won't even get into it. Those bog files work amazingly well. Something like the Cayuga Pilot Cut, for example, you've got to it's a bit more of a specific technique.
Yeah.
And you've got to learn that technique. It's not the same technique as the other broadheads because you've got that that 2 different angles on that blade. So it's a very different shaped broadhead to anything else. So you've got to, and the Cayuga fellas have done a good job of putting tutorials on their website. So anyone can go on their website, look at how it's done, see a video. They even sell the right file.
They've been super helpful.
Yeah, if you go and buy that file, which is cost bugger all, and watch that video, which is not going to take much effort, you'll learn. You'll pick it up. And it takes a little bit of learning, and you've got to invest a little bit of time, but you're going to figure it out. At the end of the day, there's going to be different techniques for different heads, but you've got to figure it out. That's your duty. You have to figure it out. You can't be lazy. You can't blame the broadhead manufacturer. if it's that hard to sharpen that you can't get it sharpened, go and find another broadhead.
Yeah.
Go and find another broadhead, because if you can't figure it out and it's too hard, go and find something else, because otherwise just don't go in the bush. Don't go and try and bow hunt. This shit's really important. It's really, really important. It's the most basic shit that we need to be getting right.
Yeah, no, that's really good answer for that one. And I hope people take a lot out of it. Like you said, the Cayuga stuff, they have amazing videos on how to sharpen their broadheads, and especially the pilot cuts, because they are that tricky shape. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff on how to sharpen it. But
and like, just to interrupt you there, mate. Like, I often say to people when they first start, like, I know there's a lot of advertising around different broadhead manufacturers, and there's a lot of hype, as there is with arrows and bows and whatever. Like, there's so much hype, and everyone's trying to do whatever's the coolest thing of that moment, sort of thing. Like, that's just how any kind of marketing works. And there's people who are good at marketing, and that's great. That's how the world works. But God, I forgot what I was going to say then. Shit, I had something important to say. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, look, you don't have to go and get a resharpenable broadhead. You can go and buy something like a Muzzy or a Rad, or those replaceable blade broadheads. They're very trustworthy and very proven. People have, like the guys in the States and over here, have been using them for virtually generations now, and those blades come out of the packet razor sharp, and you can replace them. You can buy a packet of Muzzies are quite affordable. For example, you can buy a packet of Muzzies for not that much. You're going to put them together. You're going to screw them onto the end of your arrow. You know those blades are surgically sharpened.
Yeah.
You can buy little packets of replaceable blades. So if you shoot a fallow bark and you don't want to mess around and resharpen those blades, you just put brand new ones in there. Throw them in the bin. If you don't want to spend the time resharpening them and saving yourself like $2.50, just put fresh blades on there.
Yeah, exactly.
What's it going to cost you? And that's what I say to people who are starting out, is it's probably better to start with a broadhead that has replaceable blades, just to begin with, and get a feel for it, and really know that you're it just takes one thing out of the equation, and then maybe as you progress a little bit and you want to maybe save a little bit of money and have something that's reusable, then go to a something like Cayuga or a whatever else, like something that's resharpenable. So yeah, that's often I say that to people.
I started out with NAP Thunderheads, replaceable blade, awesome head,
great broadhead.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the funniest thing that's happened to you out on a hunting trip?
Oh, that's so hard, man. That's a really, really hard one.
I know you would have lots of different stories.
I've got some really funny mates, there's just I'm just trying to think. What's the funniest thing that's happened? I remember once. Oh, look, it probably isn't the funniest thing. It was probably almost a fairly serious safety issue at the time. But I was up the Cape in the middle of nowhere with some of my best mates. There was a few characters there, and yeah, we'd definitely been we'd had a few beverages. And there was a bit of a thing going on at that stage where, like, if someone let their guard down for a moment, this is before Yetis, so Yetis weren't around then, so no one had Yetis. It was just like your normal enamel cups and whatever. But there was a bit of a trend at that stage where we would shoot each other's cups. Like if someone left their cup on the ground, we'd just shoot it with an arrow. And one of my mates, Rod, had a we were all pretty loose, and that's right. He might have been. I think it was a D-Flex longbow, so it was a really nice trad bow, and he was pretty wasted, and he walked up to me and ripped my rum cup out of my hand, which I used to have this, like, I still got a few of them, like a big red enamel sort of cup that fits like a litre. And he grabbed it out of my hand and threw it on the ground and just quickly pulled an arrow out of his quiver and just shot it perfectly straight through the middle, just shot my cup. And this is on the bank of a river up the Cape where it's big lizard country, like it's just, you don't even go anywhere near the water. Like it's proper serious croc country. Just on the intertidal zone where that's where you can't mess around, like it's right on that zone where, like it's a proper croc river. Anyway, in retaliation, he had these beautiful arrows in his quiver, like some sort of like beautiful timber handcrafted arrows that someone had made for him. And while he wasn't watching, he was still laughing about the fact that he'd shot my cup. And I just walked up and ripped one of his arrows out of his quiver and threw it straight in the drink out into the river. Anyway, he was like, his reaction to that was far worse than like, how dare I throw one of his beautiful arrows into the river where like he'd just shot my bloody cup. And we had a flat bottom tinny parked against the end of the bank, or like on the edge of the bank, and it was tied up, but it sort of, the nose of the tinny was sort of resting against the bank, and he, being quite pissed, he just walked down thinking that the nose was going to sort of stay against the bank, and he went down to the tinny and tried to just step straight into the tinny. And as soon as his foot hit the front of the tinny that was resting against the bank, the whole arse end of the boat just tilted straight up, and he just went straight arse overhead into the drink. And this is at midnight in a river where, like, I wouldn't. If someone offered me $1 million to swim across a section like 5 meters wide, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, wow.
Like, I would not even take $1 million to swim across a short section of it.
That's insane.
And this is at midnight, and like that's what, like, crocs sit there and watch you, like they just sit there for hours and check out what's going on, and watching 5 or 6 half pissed blokes on the edge of the riverbanks, probably exactly like, if there was going to be a croc anywhere, it was probably right there watching for any moment like this. And anyway, he was just flailing in the water and splashing and just trying to figure out what was going on. Anyway, I just fell to the ground laughing. Like I couldn't even try to help. Like I was just pissing myself so much I fell to the ground. But luckily, Paulie, it was Benny Chambers. Ben Chambers had enough sort of like wherewithal about him to go down and rescue Rod, and jumped in the boat and managed to not fall in himself and dragged him into the boat and got him in. But that's just one story. Rod's had a few issues like that. Like I remember once we were crossing a log in a similar sort of area, and like we'd had a big day hunting, like out in some back block sort of thing, and like it was hot and it was proper hot Cape York weather, and there was this one spot where you could cross this river that had a log across. Like you had to use this log to get across, and it wasn't the easiest log to get across. You had to sort of be quite balanced. And anyway, he got to the log first, and I was just up on the bank, sort of just out of sight, taking my boots off. I'd sort of figured that I'd have better balance with bare feet than boots, and I'm just taking my boots off, and I'm stuffed. Like I'd had a big day. I'd probably already walked 25 Ks for the day and whatever, and next minute, I hear this big splash. We'd seen big croc slides right there as we crossed it to get over to that point. On the way over, we'd seen all these big croc slides and seen a few salties drop into the water and that. And next minute, I hear this big splash, and I just hear "Butcher!" And I'm like, "Fuck, what is this going to be?" And I've got one shoe off and one still half on. I ran down the bank, ran to this log, and he'd fallen off, slipped off the log, and he'd somehow got his feet back up on top of, like, onto the log, but his chest and his torso was caught in branches in the water, like just with his back facing the ground in the water, like just asking for a croc, just a perfect morsel for a croc to come and just eat, like just completely defenseless, just had no defense whatsoever. And like I'm out there on this log trying to balance and trying to figure out a way to drag him back up to safety. Eventually got him sorted out. But there's probably funnier ones than those. But
that was good.
there's been a lot of you gotta, if you want to laugh, you gotta hang out with funny bastards, eh? That's what I've learned. There's no point hanging around with boring people. Yeah, you gotta be around funny bastards if you want to laugh. And I've been pretty lucky in that particular little aspect of life. Yeah.
I could imagine what's gone down in some of your hunting camps. You definitely hang around some characters, that's for sure.
There has been some funny shit. Yeah. Yeah, you got to laugh, eh? Like you can't be too serious about anything. You got to laugh, and you got to have that camaraderie, and yeah, you got to like, oh, that's how I operate anyway. I just yeah, I need to be around funny people.
Yeah, same.
Because I'm not very funny myself, so it needs to be somehow supplemented by other people around me. So yeah, no, it's a big part of it for me is that. Yeah, just that humour, and yeah, there's always a lot of characters in bow hunting, you know, like and that's been the same since I was a kid. I've always been around. My old man's mates were funny as well, you know. There was always a lot of humour around the campfire.
Yeah, some of those pub catch ups after the deer expos are pretty wild and pretty funny, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's been some crackers, eh?
Yeah, unfortunately, because I've done Snake Island this year and got New Zealand coming up, I won't be doing the Deer Expo this year, but I can't wait to get back to another one.
Yeah.
Top 5 dream animals. What do you have left? Have you taken some of your dream animals, or
definitely
got a couple left?
Well, number one, like if let's just probably. I'd say my number one dream animal of all time was a bighorn sheep. Like that was always my holy grail. That he was always my number one from when I was quite young, and nothing will ever surpass that. You know, like I'll never have any kind of I'll never have any. There's no dream that I have that's bigger than that. What that was. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never imagined that was possible to even have a chance to attempt it. It's hard to describe what that whole journey was like from the time I booked it, and the only reason I booked it was I got divorced. Like the day my ex-wife moved out of the house, so I went down to the bank in Chinchilla the next day and put a $6,000 deposit on that hunt because I was I'm going sheep hunting. It provided this amazing beacon and this amazing sort of light to look forward to, and at that time, they were like, and it's probably still the same now, if not worse. But you were booking 3 years in advance. Like, so from that moment of booking, I was booking a hunt that was another 3 years in advance. So I booked it in the first week of 2012, and I hunted in November 2015. So nearly 4 years, really. But that was always my holy grail, I would say, and always will be. And now it's something that's a memory and a thing that's already happened, which is interesting to look back on, but I still remember the emotion of the build up to that hunt and just what it was like being a kid dreaming about that sort of shit.
Imagine.
You know, like I still remember what it was like, even just dreaming that might be a thing that might happen one day, and I never imagined that it would. But it's hard to really determine what's number 2 though. Like, and it would be hard to determine what's number 2, 3, 4, and 5. To be honest,
like
that's just so far ahead. Like I really have. I'm going hunting for desert sheep this year in Mexico. So like in December this year, I'll be going for another sheep. That'll be my second like North American sheep hunt. Again, never ever imagined that could be possible. Crazy circumstances by which it's sort of come about. And I love all the sheep, you know, like I love the other 2 North American sheep as well, like the doll sheep and the stone sheep. And I fantasize about hunting them one day, and I think about them a lot every day. Every day I think about sheep. Like every single day I think about sheep, and I think about how can I possibly try and make one of these things happen. And it is a goal. Like I will admit it is a goal. Like it is a goal to take the Grand Slam, which is the 4 North American sheep. Whether it happens or not, I don't really care at this stage. I'm not going to lose any sleep if I'm lying in my deathbed when I'm in my 80s or 90s going, fuck, I really should have gone door sheep hunting. You know, like I know now that I'm not going to be having any regrets about what I've done or what I've attempted to do. So whatever happens from here on in. And I just really love the goats, you know, like I love the sheep and I love the goats. So I love the 4 North American sheep. I love lots of other species of sheep, some which are just completely unattainable, like some of the argalis. Just know that there's just no way I'd ever be able to afford them, nor is there really much of a chance of trying to get close enough to one with a bow. So it's well. But the Capras are a bit different. Capras sort of live in country where bow hunting's probably just a bit more doable. And one of my main goals is to take the Capra Slam, which is basically any of the any 12 of the Capra species. And I'm halfway through that now. So I've got six. Awesome. I've taken 6 Capras. I've got 6 to go, and that I will do that. That's not something that maybe might happen. That's something that will happen.
That's sick.
So in that list, I've still the most likely list of the 6 remaining would be one of the turs. I really want to hunt a tur, probably in Russia. There's 3 different species of tur, and I don't know really. I'm not sure exactly which one it'll be, but they're all pretty similar. There's not a huge difference between them. I'd love to get a tur. I'm going to France this year to hunt two species of chamois, so I'll add 2 more chamois to my list. So two different species. I've got two different chamois at the moment, but I'll be adding 2, or hopefully I will be hunting 2 more types this year. I'll probably go back to Spain and hunt another ibex over there at some stage. There's 4 different species of ibex in Spain. I've got one of them, and I'll probably go back for another. Spain's a really awesome country to bow hunt in, and just such a cool place to visit, and it's reasonably affordable compared to a lot of the other ibexes. So I think one of those 6 will be another Spanish ibex. One that's sort of been on the agenda a little bit lately is the mountain goat in North America. So the North American mountain goat is definitely in that list of 6. Absolutely obsessed with them, and
cool looking animal.
Yeah, just amazing. Yeah, and he's the only Capra that lives. Well, he's the only Capra that is from North America. They've got so many types of deer, all the caribous and the different types of elk and all the different deer species, the different whitetails and the different blacktails and different moose and whatever. There's a lot of different deer. There's a few different sheep. There's a lot of different bears, but there's only one Capra, just that one goat. And,
native one anyway, because they do have the ibex down in New Mexico.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's a good. You pulled me up there, mate. You've got me there. They're introduced though. Yeah, they're not. I was thinking native, but you're dead right. They're Bezoar ibex that live down there in the. Yeah. So yeah, the Bezoar ibex. I got one in Turkey, so he's ticked off the list. But the other one would be another ibex in Russia, which is called a cyan ibex or an Altai ibex. They're pretty closely related to the mid-Asian ibex, which is what you'll find in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan and that Central Asia sort of area. He's closely related to them, but he's separated as a different subspecies, and they really interest me, and just Russia in general interests me. I just really want to get to Russia, and it's a big country with a lot of opportunities. The war is a bit of a shit thing at the moment for a lot of not only obviously the fact that I can't go hunting there is very minuscule compared to the other issues that are there. It's a real tragedy what's happening, and it's really shit. It's shit for a lot of different people, and so they're I guess your dream animals vary over time.
They do.
It's not probably something that stays the same, and it's probably what you've got your mind set on at a particular point in time, and that changes, and that changes from something that, for me, and I can tell you from experience, it can change from something that you think is so ridiculous that you don't even want to think about it, because you're like, there's no way I can do that. I can't do that. I can't afford that. I'm not going to be a lucky one that gets one of them. I'm going to go there and I'm going to fail. I'm going to miss. I'm not going to see a legal ram. So there's all these reasons why you can convince yourself that something's not possible, right? So you go from that end of the spectrum where you have basically convinced yourself that something's not even possible, and then I can tell you that there's this whole journey from that point to when you're almost 10 years past it, and you're looking back at it as a memory, and it's a memory. You can look at the photos, you can you can look at the mount in your trophy room, and you can and at that point it's done, and it's been done for a fair while. So there's this whole process behind each adventure and each species that it's going to vary between each one. But yeah, I don't have an endless list, mate. I've got I'd love to get a Capra Slam, and once I get those 12, there's not many other Capras that are really affordable or doable.
Yeah.
So I might get to 12 or 13, and that'll be probably it. Sheep, I won't. It's virtually impossible. Like, I think only 2 or 3 people have ever got a over slam. Like, it's really, really difficult to take 12.
Have you taken
sheep.
a mouflon?
Yeah, I've got a mouflon. I've got
Barbary
Aoudad as well, which is Barbary sheep, and a bighorn. So I think it's only 3 that register at this point. But a tur registers for both. So if you get a tur, like any of those 3 tur register for both an Ovis and a Capra. Cool. So the tur are pretty affordable. Like, they're friggin' hard. Like, that's a really tough hunt with a bow. But like, who knows? You just don't know what's around the corner. And now Russia's opened up, and those turs are now available. Like, the other 2 turs that only live in Russia, now that they're available, that sort of opens up to more over species. And you've got all the snow sheep over there, so there's quite a few snow sheep that are fairly bow huntable, and some of them are more affordable than what you'd actually think.
Yeah.
So that sort of opened things up. That's opened a lot of more, like, Russia has opened up a lot more opportunities for people to chase their over slam. I haven't got a Cape buffalo. I really want to take a Cape buffalo one day. I'd love to get a bison one day. But I'm not going to go and hunt a lion or an elephant I'm not interested in grizzly bears or brown bears. My list now is fairly manageable, you know. Like, I've sort of done more than what I ever expected, and it's not an endless list. And I'm not someone who's going to keep adding to that list. I'm not going to suddenly go, I want to shoot the tiny 10, and I'm going to go and chase all these little funny antelopes. And I'm not in that sort of, I'm just not in that. That's just not what I'm going to do.
The Capras are cool, man. That's a pretty awesome list, that's for sure. Like I said, I'm off to New Zealand, go chase tar, and you know, there's some chamois in the area, not many. I'd love to at least see a chamois. But yeah, those Capra species are cool, and same with the sheep species. I shot a high fence Aoudad with the bow while I was in Texas. I really want to go hunt a free range one now after having that experience, because they're just a insane animal. They're
awesome.
I was blown away. Once you boil out the skull and you pop the horn sheath off, just how light their skulls are. It's insane. Like, that honeycomb that their horns are made up of. It's just like a light, fluffy bit of honeycomb bone, and they're just like, as soon as someone comes around, I'll throw them a goat skull, and then I'll hand them the Aoudad skull, and they're like, what the fuck? What is this? What? It feels like balsa wood. Like,
it's amazing, how they're a really interesting species, because they're similar to the turs. They're kind of right on the verge between a goat and a sheep.
Yeah.
They're right on that boundary between what the definition of a sheep is and a goat. They're right there in the middle. And turs are in the same boat, and that's why the major organisations they count both. Like, the turs count for both. They count for a sheep and a goat. And like, if you shoot all 3 of them, you've got 3 Capras and 3 sheep, and that's like insane. That's just they're right on that. They're right on the center line between the two families. Yeah. Audads are cool, man. They're awesome, and that's an affordable hunt. Like, you can do some. You can go to Texas. It doesn't cost much to fly. You've been to Texas. You know how cool it is. You know how fun it is over there. Like, it's an absolute. It's a cool place, man. Oh, it's just off its head. Like, it's just, especially being an Aussie, like, you just have to start talking, and they gather around just to listen to your accent. You know, like, it's so funny. But that's a really affordable hunt. If you shop around,
Texas is West Texas, Aoudad.
Yeah, if you shop around, you don't have to. That's a really affordable. It's a really affordable sheep hunt. Like, that's something most people. It's within most people's reach to put away a little bit of coin and go and do a really amazing hunt like that in West Texas and go and hunt an aoudad,
and you don't have to go hunt a big ram. You can take ewes, they're less than half the price, and they're just an awesome hunt as well. Like the aoudad I shot was a ewe, but she was a big old ewe, and it was high fence, not the same as a free range hunt, but it got me something cool that I could talk about. Being absolutely. Over there. So, some people get funny about high fence stuff. It's is what it is. I'm proud of it. I was pretty stoked. The ranch owner, he's like, I've never had someone successfully bow hunt one. We normally can't get within 100, 200 meters of them, and I shot it within 10 minutes with the bow. So he was pretty blown away.
That's amazing. Yeah, a lot of the time. Yeah, there's a lot of stigma around high fence and estates and that. And there's a lot of bravado around. Like I'm not a big. I don't go out of my way to go hunting high fence, but I have once in Africa. Like my first hunt overseas was in South Africa, and it was high fence. Like it was a huge property. It was 10,000 hectares, and there was holes cut specifically in the bottom of the fence, so certain small animals could get under, and the bigger animals could jump over, and there's certain animals that probably couldn't go under or over. And it left me with a little bit of a weird feeling, but it has its place. And what you'll find a lot of the time, and that's what a lot of the people who sort of probably don't really know what they're talking about before they sort of judge, is that the animals are more wide a lot of the time in these closed range areas. A lot of the time they're more wired and more alert, and probably actually harder to get a shot at a lot of the time than the stuff that's completely technically free range. But what I don't like is, there's two things I don't like. I don't like when people aren't honest about it and try and make something into what it isn't, because I think it's the right thing to do to be clear about that. And
100%.
Like you just were then, you were just so open just then. You just went like, this is what it was. I loved it. I had an awesome time. That's how everyone should be. And when people put photos up of like these giant red stags that you can tell, like, they're clearly those clean white antlers that have never seen any kind of like real bush in their life, and don't sort of state that. I have a problem with that when people try to pretend that it's like a wild red stag when it clearly isn't. And I have an issue with that. And I also have an issue with outfitters who try and blur the lines between what is free range and what's really not free range. And that's happened in Australia, particularly in Queensland. I won't name names, but there's outfitters that have made an entire business out of blurring the lines between what's free range and what's not.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I think that's, something's it's either wild or it's not.
Yeah, there's a stigma about high fence. When I first did it, talking to people, I was somewhat embarrassed saying this is what it was, because there's that stigma behind it. But I've learnt just to say to people, this is what it was. This is how it happened. I was there. My mate was shooting a black buck. He shot a nice trophy black buck with a rifle, and the property owner goes, you can go have a crack at one of those aoudad with the bow if you want for this amount. I'm like, all right, let's do it. That he had sika, elk, black buck, aoudad, all in this big fenced area. So being able to shoot a high fence aoudad when you got sika running past, and you got elk, and you got a bunch of other random, you got African species, Indian species, North American species just running around you as well. So it was,
the people the type of people that are going to say something or have a problem with that are exactly the sort of people that are never ever going to experience what you and I have experienced in Texas. They're just never going to even know what it's like, because they're too cool, or they're too purist, or whatever. They're not going to have those experiences, and that's fine. Like that's their choosing, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but estate hunting has its place.
It does.
It has its place in modern hunting, and I don't condone hunting in really, really small enclosures or things that have just released half an hour before, because that happens too. There's all these different variables, but if you're hunting in an area that's like in inverted commas, fair chase because it's a huge chunk of land and it has a fence that's impenetrable around it. But those animals are like pound for pound, they're just as tough to stalk with a bow and get a shot at.
They are.
I don't have an issue with it. Yeah. And like I said, often they're going to be harder. Often It's going to be actually more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So coming up on to the end of the podcast now, what is hunting to you?
Oh, you're going deep now. It is. What is hunting to me? It is it's something that it's. We don't really have a one-stop shop word for what hunting is or what it could mean. You can't, like we said before, we don't like the word sport, and we agreed on that. It's not a sport. It's not a hobby. You could say it's a lifestyle, and I think that's true. It is. I think it's partially a lifestyle. I don't think it's an all-encompassing lifestyle. Like I've got other parts of my life that don't involve hunting. My whole life doesn't totally revolve around hunting, but a big part of my life revolves around it. To me, at the really basic level, I think it runs very deep inside us as humans, and I think it's at the most basic level, it's a spiritual thing. I think it lights a fire inside of us that very few other things can achieve. There are things that really, like, there are a few things that in life that are natural, that we've been doing for a long time, that feel really good. So if you imagine, like, why is it that when we sit around a fire with our fellow humans, like our mates, for example, why is it that we sit around a fire and stare into the fire? Like, it's because we've been doing it for so long. Why does making love feel so good? Like, it's something we've been doing for so long, and it's been part of our it's something that we've had to do for so long to breed, to actually just breed and create the next generation. Why does sitting around the table eating dinner with your family feel so good? And eating good food, I should add, with your family and being around your loved ones. Why does that feel so good? It's because we've been doing it for such a long time, and we know inside ourselves that that's important. It's just something it's been part of us for so long. Like driving cars has been around for like 0.1 of a second, and how many people are just absolutely obsessed with cars? I'm not. I've got a ute, and it's a tool. Yeah. It's a tool that gets me from A to B and takes me to hunting places, and it does all the things that I need it to do. But I don't get obsessed about cars. I'm not a car nut. I don't play video games. I don't play footy. I'm absolutely useless at footy as well. There's just nothing else that I've come across that gives me the emotion and the passion and the feeling and the connection with spirituality that hunting does and continues to do. And there's so many other variables to it. Like, it's not, when people say it, you can't answer that in one word or one particular thing, because there's so many different elements to it. Like there's like, one example is the meat side is a big thing. I love that. I love providing meat for my family, and it's become more and more of a thing as time's gone on. Like, it wasn't when I was hunting with Dad when I was a kid. We didn't take meat from pigs. We didn't. Obviously, when we shot a deer, we kept all the meat. But these days, I go and take deer for meat, and our freezer is generally full of venison. We eat a lot of venison per year. It's probably, in the last 3 years, it's probably been at least 4 nights out of 7 we have venison for dinner. So the meat angle is a big thing, and not only for my immediate family, but sharing that with friends and family, and just actually sharing that with others. I think just the being able to hit the reset button and the mental health, like the mental health kind of positives that come with it. Like there is just something, as we know, but that is hard to describe to others who don't know about it, that like going out bush and resetting and just totally switching off, like and just being so in a different zone for those. It might be one afternoon. You might be just going hunting rabbits for an afternoon, or you might be going to Kyrgyzstan for a week, or whatever it is. But you go into the bush, whatever it looks like, whatever that bush looks like, and you go into such a different zone compared to the zone that we live in as modern humans, that it does something amazingly positive for our mental well-being and our brains. And like anyone that's not a hunter will never understand that unless they actually have a crack. There's the whole family element to it. Like I see my grandfather wasn't a hunter. He wasn't into hunting at all. He doesn't even fish. He didn't. He's still alive, but he was never even into fishing. He was into cricket and swimming and tennis and stuff. But he never hunted and never fished. Luckily, my dad figured it out and started. But that the family connection and the kind of bond that I've got with my old man and that I hope to be able to achieve with my son, like I just can't imagine, like, yeah, I just think it's that bond that you create with your immediate family members if you hunt together is like a level of nothing else, eh?
Yeah.
Like it's on another level when I can look at Dad. If we're hunting together, he doesn't have to talk. Like I can read his mind through his eyes, you know, like I know he just has to turn around and look at me and I know exactly what he's saying without him opening his mouth. And it's the same for me to him. And you start to build that with your mates too. Like if you hunt with mates a lot, you start to build almost a telepathic ability to communicate. So I think the mateship and the camaraderie and the family elements of it are a massive thing. The adrenaline, obviously, and the adventure, like I love traveling. I love traveling and I love exploring places that I haven't been and countries that I haven't been and areas that I haven't been. And I'm fascinated with plants and animals and geology and waterways and creeks and just nature. Anything that nature has created, I love it. I'm just interested. I just want to see it and I want to be in it. And I think that's at the end of the day, that's where we came from. We didn't come from a suburban street. We didn't come from a high rise. We didn't even come from a village. We came from the bush. Mm-hmm. That was where we came from. And like nature is where we came from. And we were there for hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years, before we suddenly started living in this absolute fucking circus that we live in now. Like that, and that's still in us. We can't avoid that. Yeah. Like it's still in us. And like what the world has turned into in the last sort of 500 years or 2,000 years or 3,000 years, it is just totally alien compared to where we've come from for a long time. So we have that connection to what we have, this innate connection to where we came from and what we came from. And that's what we get. That's what we connect with when we go hunting. We're like, oh, fuck, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Same as when you're making love. Like that's what you're supposed to do. Like it makes sense. You're like, yep, this is awesome. This is what I'm supposed to do.
It does.
And like that's at a basic level. That's what we're supposed to do. And we're not supposed to play Australian rules football.
No.
We do, and everyone thinks it's cool, and everyone loves it. Like I'm not an Aussie rules fan. I watch a bit of NRL, but that's not what we're supposed to do. That's not like, that's just a game that we invented a few seconds ago, and now everyone, like, for whatever reason, everyone thinks it's amazing, and that's fine. I'm not having a go on it, but
you can't put a deer in the freezer with a football. So.
No, you can put a few $1 million in the bank though if you really could. But like it's what we're supposed to do, man. It's what we're supposed to do, and that's what we've always done. And like this, I think we're living in fairyland at the moment. Like in this current age, like there's going to be some real, like, I hope it doesn't happen in our lifetime, and like I'm not a pessimist, but there's going to be some real serious shit that goes down in the future. In our lifetime, like yours and mine, and our parents, like we've been living in absolute fairyland. There's been no wars really. It's been just these huge, like the way the economies have developed, and like the standard of living and everything. Like we've been living in absolute fairyland for the last 2 generations, and it is going to come crashing down at some point. We cannot sustain the population that we've got. We cannot sustain things the way we're going. We're just it's gonna fail.
Yeah.
And one day, mark my words right now, one day we will need to go and hunt to survive. There won't be woolies. There won't be electricity or credit cards or service stations where you can go and get gas. You're going to have to go and hunt. That's going to happen.
We're almost there with the Rona. How many people picked up a bow and a rifle when Rona hit?
Yep, and Corona was a drop in the ocean, mate. There's going to be way more serious shit than that happens in the near future. And like, I don't want to be a pessimist, but it's going to happen. Like, it's just a cycle of nature, and there will be a time when if you can't hunt, you're just going to perish.
It's that quote that Rogan says all the time. Hard times create hard men. Hard men create easy times create soft men create hard times.
Yep. And do you know who's going to perish the fastest when shit hits the fan? It's going to be the people that are out there right now trying to figure out how to stop us bow hunting in South Australia.
Exactly.
They are not going to pass on their genetics. I can guarantee you they will not. Those types of people will not be passing on their genetics. Thank God. That it's just not going to happen. They're just not going to have what it takes to survive one single day.
No, they'll be coming to us. When shit hits the fan, we'll be the people.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I hope it's not in our lifetimes or our kids, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. It kind of needs to. We need a master reset, as bad as that sounds, but
I agree. I totally agree, mate. Yeah, we do. We need a master reset. We need to be thinned out massively.
I was hoping for zombies over Rona, but
I don't know how zombies go with an arrow. I haven't really played enough video games to know how they react to an arrow, but I'm not sure. Do they still work like a good sharp broadhead or
Walking Dead? They were knocking them down with field tips.
Oh, righto. Oh, better stock up on field points.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Ben, thank you for coming on. If people have enjoyed what they've heard, where can they find you? Where can they find Silent Pursuits? And
yeah, well, if you're going through Tully, you can drop in for a beer if you want. That's where you'll find me physically, but on social media, I guess I better. Yeah, I have it's just my name, like just bensalleras on Instagram and Facebook, and Silent Pursuits. I've got a Instagram and a Facebook, even though there's been a bit of a meltdown and there's a bit of I've lost access to my Facebook account for the time being, but I'm still trying to sort that out. Social media is a fragile thing, as I learned in the last few weeks. It can just go pear-shaped very quickly for no reason and with no warning. But yeah, like it's not hard to find me on any of those things. There is a Silent Pursuits website too, which is just silentpursuits.com. That's just a bit of a landing page which has a bit of information about the different countries where organise hunts, and you can make contact there. But yeah, like I said before, I organise hunts in anywhere where hunting's legal in the world. I organise hunts, and it doesn't matter whether you're a rifle hunter or a bow hunter I quite often get queries, for example, about Bulgaria from people saying, "Oh, is it bow hunting only?" And I'm like, "No, like of course I look after anyone. It doesn't matter doesn't matter what you hunt with. I'm a bow hunter, but I look after more rifle hunters than bow hunters overall per year. And anywhere where hunting's legal, I can set you up, and I'm going to look after you. I'm going to put you in the right spot. I'm going to make sure you're going to have an awesome time and give you the absolute best chance of success. And that's what my job is. That's what I do. I put you in the right spot, and I look after all the details and make sure everything goes to plan. And I take a lot of pride in making sure that happens. And I encourage people just to get in touch, even if you want to have a yarn about any of these hunts, or like, I think a lot of people kind of have it in their heads that things are more expensive or more out of reach than what they actually are. There are so many awesome hunts out there right now that offer such amazing value. There's just so many cool hunts out there that are more affordable than plenty of hunts in Australia. Like, there's stuff you can go and hunt a Basidi ibex in Spain for less than what you're going to pay for some red or fallow deer hunts in Australia. Like, there's some amazing opportunities out there, and I'm happy to spell them out. Like, my phone's always on, and I'm always keen for a chat, no matter who you are or what your level of experience is or what you're interested in. I'm always up for a chat, and can definitely guide you on the right path. And just feel free to reach out. I'm just another hunter.
And you've also got through the Silence Pursuits some Australian hunts as well on there, goat hunting as well, I've seen. So that makes it accessible for people looking to just get out for a goat hunt.
Yeah, well, watch that space, mate, because there might be something happening there in the near future, along the lines of what we were speaking about before in terms of education and
perfect
training. The whole training angle. So that there's a bit of a thing where working on there at the moment. I think goats are just the perfect animal to learn on.
Yeah.
And you South Australian fellas, you know that because you've got great opportunities down there. Like sometimes I think in Australia, like, because there's so many people, especially with bows, I'm talking about bows specifically, there's so many deer getting shot with bows now that a lot of beginners must just think that's normal and think that they should be able to go and shoot deer with a bow and that should be something that's very achievable. But shooting any species of deer with a bow anywhere in the world, anywhere in Australia, any species, it doesn't matter. Like, that's a really big deal. And social media has kind of made it into not a big deal, but it really is. Deer are fucking hard to hunt with a bow. Doesn't matter where you are. And pigs are definitely easier to stalk and probably easier to get opportunities at, but they're often in places that are further away and require more time to sort of get to, and the logistics are a little bit more complex. And some people aren't ready to just go straight up to Cape York and start shooting pigs or big like big boars with a bow. Some people aren't quite ready for that. Goats aren't going to come and attack you, and the opportunities are very high. Like, there's a high rate of opportunity. So I think goats just offer a great opportunity for a beginner. You've got the meat element, you've got skins, you've got capes potentially if you're getting a mount done, you've got trophy preparation, boiling out heads and stuff like that. There's less seasonality, like you've got more, you can pretty much hunt them all year. Like there's something happening there at the moment, and stay tuned on that. And
awesome.
I'll be sure to let you know when it happens anyway. But but if anyone's keen for a goat hunt, I offer. We run goat hunts all through the year, so it's always open, and it's a great opportunity to go and hunt goats if you haven't got access. But from a training perspective, there might be something happening there fairly soon. Yeah,
that's awesome to hear. There's been I've spoken about it. If I had property to take people out and do bow hunting seminars on, that's a really good idea. So it's something that's been spoken about for a long time with a bunch of different people. So
Yeah,
that's awesome to hear. But yeah, thank you very, very much, Ben. Very much appreciated. It was great to have you on. Yeah, a great talker, and I've learned a lot. That's for sure.
Oh, it was a good chat, mate. We covered a lot of material and a lot of different aspects. And you're a great interviewer.
Oh, thank you very much.
Few people could learn from you, I reckon.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been I listen to podcasts, 6-7 hours a day. So, yeah, hopefully I pick something up.
Yeah, no, you're doing great, mate. Yeah, you look like an absolute pro here on the video, on the computer screen. You look like you've been doing it for 20 years.
Cheers, man. Really appreciate it. Anyway, well, have a good night, and thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for listening to another episode of Hunting Connection Podcast. Please head over to our social media and give us a follow. Instagram at Hunting Connection Podcast, Facebook at Hunting Connection Podcast, Twitter at Hunting Connect, TikTok at Hunting Connection Podcast. If you've enjoyed, please share with your friends and family, tag us in your photos and videos on social media, subscribe, rate and review to help grow the podcast. If you're interested in giving additional support to the podcast, you can head over to our podcast's Patreon page. Thank you very much for listening, and catch you next episode.